Good morning. I knew what you meant. It still feels like morning. Troy. Yes. All right. Alex McNeil, nice to meet you. Yes, nice to meet you.
Okay, and I'll take the other down. We're just gonna put them on the table.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, usually it's, that's right. Yeah, she just wanted me to know your name.
Oh.
And I haven't had stuff for the board meeting to keep this stuff. Sure. Hey, how are you? Good. That's a better, I ran out and put a blanket on my floor. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I get it. No,
Susan?
Oh. This one, or the one? Oh, yeah. Yes, I got it. Oh, and?
I can't get anything. I can't get anything to load. Shows up?
Yep, it's on my calendar.
Well,
I'm sure you do tomorrow, 2 o'clock.
There we go.
Hey, Troy.
Here's an extra full copy.
Here.
That's the, I got a copy of that. Oh, I just didn't have a thing, I didn't have the agenda, I couldn't get that. Oh, yeah, I don't have that.
2 o'clock. I wanted you to have that info, because I know that, like, my here.
I'm always great, you know, I'm just kind of like, whatever. Life just is always something.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I just didn't like the quarter. Are you encroaching in on her? Did you Do I need to come over and draw a line? No.
Dr. Meany? We ready to go? We are ready to go. Good evening. Yes. We've already run a file. Here we go.
We are never gonna run a file, we're gonna be on it tonight.
Testing.
Oh, there it is.
Testing. Got it? Perfect. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. My name is Alexander. It is a pleasure to be here with you today to share this priority audit. I've had the great fortune of being in, doing school culture audits in your building, walking in so many of your classrooms, sitting in teacher collaboration meetings, with your teachers, working side by side with your principals on their school culture. And to get this opportunity to look at the larger district culture, was a pleasure and an honor, and I hope that the report goes to, generate some questions, some thoughts about how you guys move forward. The purpose of today is to share with you, the basics of this priority audit, and, we'll just jump right into it. So here we go. The presentation is a little bit different. It's not my home course, but thank you so much for getting all the tech set up and ready. This is going to be a presentation where I'll be sharing some, but forward, here is the warning that I will expect some responses from you in the beginning part here as we start working through some of these concepts. So what is culture? Because this was essentially an organizational culture audit. So here we go. What is a priority audit? This document is a district-level organizational culture analysis. A team of researchers came to the district, identified priorities that were being communicated and implemented. An inventory was developed around district priorities and given to instructional staff. More than 300 instructional staff completed the survey. About 311 is what we used for the data. That data were used to generate questions for the other members of the school team and the greater Elkhart community. The superintendent, non-certificated staff, the Teachers Association leadership, corporate level administration, building administration, community members, board members, you guys, we interviewed all of you, and parents were part of these interviews. And from this, we took all this data and all these artifacts and compiled it into this report. The main priority of the Elkhart Community Schools audit is to help you achieve the Elkhart Promise. Every student is known by name, challenged and supported by highly effective staff, and in partnership with the community, will graduate career and college ready and life ready. And the whole goal is to look at your organizational culture, look at the priorities of the superintendent, and say, are we getting to the promise? Every board member, we begin the meetings by reciting the promise. This is the centerpiece of the district strategic plan from 2017 to 2022. And the board and superintendent work together to develop these steps to help achieve the promise. The 6 focuses that were developed are, and I'm going to run through all 6 of them right now because they're important and they're the basis of the audit. The first priority was to assess and implement practices to promote individual and institutional health, restorative justice, trauma-informed practices, mindfulness, social-emotional wellness, in order to nurture positive relationships and repair harm for any person. The second priority was to institute the Professional Learning Communities PLC process with fidelity, rooted in an abiding concern for all with whom we work and for those we serve in order to transform professional interaction and conflict. The third priority was systematically develop and implement core curriculum with appropriate resources at all grade levels to promote guaranteed and viable curricular experiences for all learners. The fourth priority was assessment and implement appropriate intervention models and a multi-tiered system of academic, language, and behavioral supports. The fifth was improve communication with community and parents with a focus on cultural sensitivity and customer service. And the final priority that the board and superintendent are going to set to focus on the promise was to complete the merger and demonstrate financial constraint and responsibility. This priority audit was done to research the growth of each of these elements, the alignment with communication and the district's organizational culture. The data from this audit were compiled into this report, revealed the alignment between the organizational culture of the district and these data will not be reading from the report verbatim like that. But different pieces I want to make sure that we do hit. So that is what the priority is. Or what is the research behind the audit? That is the fun stuff, and fun for me, not so much for you guys, sorry, because this slide comes directly from my dissertation. My dissertation is a quantitative dissertation on school culture. This is the most boring slide I will have tonight, so deepest apologies, all right? So, but first we got to lay down, what is culture? What was I looking at when I came in here? And first, culture is a pattern of shared basic assumptions. It's how we do things around here. It is the process, it's how we communicate. It's the vocabulary we use. It's our norms and routines of behavior. These assumptions were learned by the group when dealing with the problems of the past, and problems are always a constant. We develop these norms of communication to try to solve the problems that were put in front of us. These assumptions solve the problems of, these are really brainy terms, external adaptation and internal integration. Now let me just explain. External adaptation means problems from the outside, and internal integration means new people are always joining our organization. New people are always joining the board. Our culture helps solve the problem of how do we socialize you when you become a board member. Organizations or groups exist to deal with problems, and problems are always a constant. If kids just became learned, they would not need school boards. All right, we actually exist to deal with the problem. How do we educate the students of Elkhart? That is your role and responsibility. You are here to solve that problem. So therefore, culture is both a dynamic phenomenon and a socialization process due to the nature of constant problem solving. It's a dynamic phenomenon, it means it's always changing, and it's a socialization process. So that's the brainiest of slides, deepest apologies. I like talking about culture this way better. And when I worked with you guys, when I worked in your schools, I looked at these things right here. Because culture manifests itself in three ways. First are the artifacts. These are the things we can see. When I interviewed you guys, when I interviewed the executive administration, when my associates interviewed the parents and the community members, we listened for the vocabulary that you were using. That's why we hit on the promise. You guys talk about the promise all the time. It's a huge artifact of the district. You're going to start your board meeting in about 40 minutes with talking about the promise. These artifacts communicate what we value, our espoused values, all right? What does the promise communicate what you value, all right? And you say it right in there. And underneath what we can't see, but what we kind of start to infer from multiple different artifacts, is what do you believe? So when we were doing this analysis, we looked at the artifacts, we looked at the values they communicated, and so you'll see that terminology layered in this report. We don't go to belief in here. Belief is for what you to figure out and determine together as a group, as a board. All right, so let's take some time and practice. And board, this is the time when you guys are going to have to, and you're going to find this in the report anywhere. This is actually for you to sort of, you're going to see an instructional strategy I love using. All right, it's called team, pair, solo. And I know this is kind of odd for board meetings, but I love presenting to crowds, and you guys keep growing. It's for them, so sorry. You can participate in your head, but it's for them to participate with. We're going to play a little game called team, pair, solo. I'm going to put up a picture here, and I talked to you about artifacts, right? What artifacts do you see that come out in this first picture? And then what values do you think they communicate? Now, again, we're going to play team, pair, solo. So the first one is team, all of us together. There's no hands raised or anything. I just want you to start shouting out these artifacts that are going to appear in this picture. What artifacts do you see, and what values do you think they communicate? All right, team, go for it. Just shout them out. What show me artifacts, and what do they communicate?
It's Christmas time.
It's Christmas. What is making you think that it's Christmas time?
It could be the word Christmas.
It could be, yes. And we have other things that would represent artifacts that would celebrate the Judeo-Christian holiday of Christmas. Yes. What else do you see in there?
The Christmas tree and the stockings.
Stockings. How many people do you think are in this family right here, or this group of people, this organizational culture living together? Four. You're right. The artifacts start shouting out to us the elements of this culture. Anything else you want to pick out in this picture? I know it's small for you guys on the side.
Inappropriate use of hockey skates.
Read, and we got hockey skates.
No, inappropriate use of hockey skates. You see, those should not be hanging. Those should be on the ice.
Oh, here. Okay, so I run afoul with the picture I've chosen to use today, but again, you're communicating the values that you have in that artifact compared to their values in that artifact. Now, we got to be, you're right, you're starting to dig into the values that they have. There's a little truck right there sitting there on the mantle. And maybe that was really an easy buy that they had, and they said, oh, this is a really cute truck, but also they might have trucks in their life, right? The artifacts that we have Communicate what we value. Look at this room right now. Look at the artifacts that you have up. For the people watching at home, look at what we're communicating in the back of the screen. We're communicating the Elkhart and the E symbol that we put on the front of the report. We have the buildings on the sides of the walls. We have the American flag. These are the artifacts that communicate what we value and what we believe, okay? All right, that's team. Now we're gonna do pair, all right? And I do wanna recognize not everyone shared that time, so it's gonna be a little tough. We're gonna do elbow partners. We're actually perfect for elbow partners right here, all right? So I'm gonna switch to the next photo, and I want you to go to your elbow partner. I want you to say the artifact you see and what do you think they value. Go for it.
Hunting.
What tells you that, Troy?
The deer head.
Deer head, artifacts. They value that.
I don't know, I gotta get my glasses.
I think they value art, because they have a lot of pictures of.
They have a lot of pictures.
Hanging baskets.
The hanging basket. Yeah. I'm gonna say, you know what? If you have kids, that's not called a chair. That's called a swing. All right. Like, let's be honest with you on that. I don't think they have kids.
Somebody might be a hairdresser, they have a clothes dryer or a hair dryer.
Interesting. And a mirror right there too in the back. And a musical instrument. It's very eclectic, right?
Yes.
Artifacts tell us something about what these people believe. All right, what they value and what they believe. All right, you guys, that was team. I'm sorry, you did team. That was pair. And now individually, I want you to figure out what this person values and believes. Yes.
Very
Yes. And we're Chicago Bear fans around here, right?
Colts.
Okay, go me for a Vikings
We
joke.
almost won last night.
All right.
56
But,
seconds.
and this is a joke, right? Because we all know these artifacts are hitting us in the face, and they communicate with this person's values and ultimately what they believe. When I came into your district, whether I was at the school level or whether I was working with you guys, I was listening to what you said. I was listening to the vocabulary you're using. I was listening to what the ideas you bounced off of each other around, and I looked for those commonalities that we built into this report. Okay? That's where it came from. It's about looking at artifacts. I try to keep opinion out of it to say this is what it says, these are the things you did, and these are the things that we could look at growing. That's culture, all right? Because I know that word gets thrown around for a lot of different things, and understand organizational culture means looking at what you guys have, what artifacts you have, what you value, and ultimately for you guys to determine what you believe. All right, so here's the other thing. All right, this is really an important concept. What shapes our view of schools? And it says educators, because this slide I have is built for when I work with teachers, but this goes for whether you're a school board member, or if you're a parent, or a community member, you think about schools. I want you to think about this impact, because when we think about what shapes our view of what schools should be, it has a lot to do with this theory. And again, it's pretty brainy, but it's really important to understand. It's called the Apprenticeship of Observation. And what this guy, his name is Dan Lordy, he went into the American public school system and basically just hung out for a year. And that year, he left, and while he was there, he substitute taught, he sat in the staff lounges, he went to board meetings. And at the end of the year, he said the American public school system would be one of the hardest organizations to change. And he said, this is the reason why. He came up with multiple points, but the first two are highly critical. First, he says, we are the only field that educates our future employees. We socialize our future employees when they start with us in early childhood and kindergarten. At 4 years old, we start showing the vocabulary, the norms, the attitudes, the beliefs, all right, of what a teacher is supposed to do, what the principal does, what the bus driver does, what the paraprofessional does, what the board members do maybe. We start seeing that at age 4, and that starts impacting what we believe schools should look like. The other thing that we should take into account is that the average educator was a really good student. This is true. They keep redoing the study. Usually they have the second best GPAs on state campuses. And board members, if you had a lot of anxiety in school, you probably didn't choose to come back and serve as a board member here. If we're involved in schools here, this is probably not something that you had a lot of anxiety doing. So school is something that you socialized into very young. You probably had a good experience at schools. This starts impacting this is how we're socialized into schools. And that's why sometimes when we think of new concepts, when we start thinking about the change that we need to have in schools, we go back to our experience and we say, That doesn't work. It shouldn't be this way because that's not how it was when I was in school. One of the most dangerous things as part of our field, and we are the only field that does this. If you want your kid to be a dentist, you do not drop them off at a dentist office at age 4, all right? Have them watch dentists for 13 years and then go off to dentist school to come back and be a dentist. We're the only field that does that. And it impacts our judgment. When I work with teachers, it's one of the biggest things that I had to work with because we all have a schema in our mind of what school should be, and that was developed and just overwhelmingly socialized into us starting at age 4. All right, the other two things is that we subconsciously protect the system, and we actually put in little obstacle courses within that system just to protect it. Now, I'll be honest, as a teacher myself, I felt this way that, look, kid, I listened in class, I learned in school, if you just do the same thing, you'll be fine. But I didn't have that same challenge that the kid next to me had, right? And so I don't understand all the time when I didn't understand as an early teacher, when that kid had the problem learning my class, I didn't get why they couldn't learn. I had to understand to go beyond my perception. It's a really important concept that I work with a lot of new teachers, a lot of veteran teachers, and it's really important for school board members to know this is impacting our judgment on what schools should look like all the time. All right, moving along here. My clicker is a little slow. Here we go. All right, so I'm back to the research, back to the report. I just summarized that first section, or second section where it says the research behind the audit. All right, so the Elkhart Promise, section 1. The audit evaluated the implementation of the district's mission, the Elkhart Promise. The Elkhart Promise was found branded in multiple artifacts. The audit found staff, both instructional and non-instructional, parents, community members, had a strong grasp of the goals and purpose of the district through the promise. Work needs to be done around it, making sure that the promise is still aligned with the board's intent. That conversation can act as a way for you to renew the focus on the promise and make sure all elements of the district culture are aligned to that promise. I found some evidences I'll share with you here. Mr. Shepard did a lot of community interviews as part of this. He found 17 out of 17 community members, support staff, and parents were aware of the Elkhart Promise. 16 out of 17 of that same group could mention the wording in that promise, and I need you to understand exactly how amazing that is, because when you ask a parent or a community member, what is the mission of a district, very rarely can they answer what that is. So it's very strongly branded. The vocabulary of the Elkhart Promise was found later through multiple artifacts over the last few years in presentations and handouts. It was referred to during multiple recorded presentations. It was found on the district website. It was found in the strategic plan. Staff survey artifacts had 82% of staff responders citing they understood their job as part of the district, and that perception had continuously been growing. We actually found the promise in the offices. The Elkhart Promise is a district mission statement, is a driving force for the Elkhart organizational culture. Elkhart has done uncommonly well getting the promise into the minds of the organization's members and community. The board members reviewing this audit should recognize the power of this mission statement and discuss if it still connects to the goals of the district. It is advised that the board members and superintendent either revise the promise or have the conversations that all members and the superintendent acknowledge the presence and purpose of the promise in its current form and move forward with it. It is uncommonly good to have this much of the community recognize something that is important. And it comes from you guys constantly saying it, right? Like you're gonna say it in another 35 minutes, all right? This is so important. All right, section 2. So next we went into the 6 priorities. I've already shared those with you. They were the 6 priorities that when the superintendent was hired, he did a listening tour and said, here's the promise, how do we get to the promise? And he developed these 6 priorities. Now they have sort of changed over time because I know that the referendum was noted on one of those. And so you have revised them over time. But these are the priorities that we looked at and saw. The audit looked at the 6 priorities of the superintendent through survey tools, observation, and interviews. The audit found 6 priorities had become or were currently developing as part of Elkhart's culture. So we've gone through what those 6 priorities are. To study the integration of 6 priorities into the Elkhart culture, a survey was developed for instructional staff, and interviews were done with non-instructional staff, parents, community, union leadership, administration, and board members. The following pages will review the data. The following slides will review the data that was found. So we go to priority 1. Priority 1 focuses on instructional practices to help individual and institutional health. The audit found 2 of the 4 practices had become strong parts of the organizational culture, and I have some data coming next at you of which ones those were. The implementation of the other 2 practices had begun, but had not taken root in the instructional culture. Some variants existed at elementary, middle, and high school. We'll see that with the data. The audit found some conflicting messages regarding the priority of the superintendent, and suggested for possible realignment around this priority. Let's take a look at where we were successful. Okay, and I've kind of gone out of order if you're following along, so I apologize. Because I jumped right to the 2 that we found, the staff, of the 311 staff that responded, were very successful and very well integrated in the culture. And the first one was trauma-informed practices. Some variants at the elementary to the high school, but the staff, by and large, said that trauma-informed practices were very well integrated with their process. And let me just say, what is trauma-informed practice? Right, 15. When a school system approaches students through a trauma lens, they are better equipped to provide the educational and social-emotional supports necessary to help students reach their potential. Trauma-informed practices are widely considered to be an effective strategy to help schools improve by making sure students who come to school with unmet needs or trauma have the supports to prepare them for learning. I found some artifacts, and they were artifacts that support the importance of trauma-informed practices were found in district-level presentations, recorded video, and during site visits. Teacher survey comments revealed multiple staff from different buildings citing this as a helpful strategy. The majority of staff clearly understood the purpose of the strategy. It was well integrated into the culture. The next one that was really well integrated was social-emotional wellness. And again, we see a slight variance now between elementary and the secondary, but really it is widely used, widely integrated into the culture. Here's some information on social-emotional. Classroom social-emotional wellness strategies have a positive impact on student academics and help reduce risky behavior associated with adolescence. Strategies that help build social-emotional learning in the classroom range from building self-management skills and executive functioning to social awareness building, like the ability to empathize with others and relationship-building activities. Furthermore, this is pretty important, COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the school's social-emotional well-being. When considering how to make sure Elkhart realigned academic growth, leaving out social-emotional learning would be leaving out a research-identified necessity. Now for the next 2 that we had mild integration of. Staff was asked about restorative practices. Restorative practices at the elementary and middle school seem to have a not as strong as the other 2, but about a 50-50 integration, and a little bit less at the high school. And for, just so we understand what restorative justice is, and this one is very much related to that Dan Lordy concept, the Apprenticeship of Observation, traditional versus research-based. Restorative justice practices are an alternative to traditional disciplinary actions that center on punishment for misbehavior or breaking rules. Traditional punishment pushes students, proportionally students of color or low-income students, out of their classrooms and school community. They may be suspended or simply sent to the principal's office, but students who are pushed out may drop out of school altogether. Research studies have identified restorative justice as an effective strategy when developing a sustained positive change for student behavior, reducing bullying, and reducing ethnic discrepancies in suspension. Across the nation, restorative justice implementations have been marked with challenges because it is very different than traditional discipline systems. A few evidences that I found is teacher survey mentioned in the open-ended section is that they felt restorative justice had worked well for me a few times. When in the individual schools, no evidence of restorative justice use was found when I was in the schools individually. And the superintendent interview cited this strategy was supported the least due to the rollout of this priority and the opportunity cost to focus on the surrounding adoptions and the other strategies. And the last strategy is mindfulness practices. And mindfulness was a really hard one for me to gauge. Again, elementary and middle had about a 50% implementation perception, and a little bit less in the high school. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness strategies take on many forms, from meditation to breathing exercise to sensory experiences. The use of mindfulness strategies has both been identified to help impact teacher stress and classroom climate. Many times in the research, mindfulness is coupled with the other strategies listed in Priority 1. In multiple peer-reviewed research studies, increased self-efficacy, higher levels of resilience, and reduction of anxiety have all been attributed to mindfulness and the companion strategies that it's in studies with. And I want to also mention that teachers mentioned this. Many teachers commented on positive implementation of mindfulness. The students love when we do guided visualization meditation with them, and mindfulness practices such as the calming corner helps our students who are in the beginning stages of escalation. These comments reveal an understanding of the purpose behind mindfulness. And again, the mindfulness strategies were 50-50. Priority 1, we saw 2 had taken very strong root, and 2 were still in development, but not left out completely. The teachers were asked, what is the most impactful strategy that we have implemented? And this is what the 311 instructional staff said. They rated social emotional at the very top. And also I want to point out that elementary is that dark blue, the light blue is middle, and then the green is high school. So you see the different varied opinions. They really thought social emotional and trauma informed were the 2 strategies that were making the biggest difference. Mindfulness, the judges fill out. They mentioned a lot of the individual comments were about mindfulness strategies, but they didn't comment that it was the thing that was making the biggest difference in their classroom. All right, Priority 2. Look at here it is. Priority 1 is the heftiest. All right, it goes very fast from here. All right, Priority 2. Focused on the development of teacher collaboration teams in the professional learning media system. The audit found a strong level of integration of these concepts into the instructional culture. The audit also identified some challenges that the district faces moving forward. And that challenge, much of it ranges around staffing. It ranges around the new alignment at the high school. It was mentioned makes it difficult to find the minutes for collaboration. Your elementaries cited having collaboration time over 150 minutes a week. And that's a great amount of time that they found extremely supportive. The high school doesn't have that right now, and that's an important thing. That's why I say the thing that we have to face, the challenges we face moving forward, you've got to figure out how to get to high school at that time. Your team was asked, are you part of a PLC team? And almost across the board, everyone said, yes, this is a strategy that is integrated into our culture. And then, very interestingly, we asked, another part of the PLC system, the Professional Learning Community System, is a school improvement and strong guiding coalition. And your team was asked, does your school program have a school guiding coalition or school improvement team? And I mean, 99% of elementary teachers, 97% of middle school and high school teachers knew about their school improvement team. This is, and I visit places that don't have school improvement teams. This is a solid integration of this strategy in the PLC process. All right, Priority 3 focuses on the implementation of core curriculum. The audit found this priority to be successful while balancing both the need for new materials and training to properly implement. And this is the teeter-totter in when we are adopting curriculum. You might want to adopt 4 core curriculums at one time, but a change like that would, the weight of it would crush the district. They would crush our teachers. We can't do that. So then you have to go systematically, piece by piece, to make sure you do make the changes without giving too much stress to the system. And by and large, people knew that they had implemented, elementaries had many curricular adoptions, and that's why you see that reflected with 89%. And the 50% integration in your middle school and high school probably is telling you that at least 2 of your core subjects have received some sort of new curricular tool or material. All in all, we found the successful nature and timing of implementation of curriculum. Priority 4, a focus on intervention models for students. This is part of the instructional culture in Elkhart. It was also suggested this could be a possible area of growth through the identification of instructional strategies and the process to implement those best practices. So when So instead of rigor, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because if a student is traumatized, they need that trauma-informed practice to be ready for the rigor. With that being said, you must have rigorous instruction. So I laid down the report, how to identify what those best practices are, the best instructional strategies that we want to use tier 1 across the district, that you do in your classrooms already, and how to find them, and then roll them out with the exact same fidelity as you've seen done with those elements of priority 1, and integrate those into the culture. There is no reason why you cannot have those. You want to make sure you build students up, but we have to have the rigor too. Staff were asked with this MTSS question about they felt how successful did they feel their MTSS system had been for 3 different groups: academic support for students, English learners, and behavior support. And you see dark blue is elementary, light blue is the middle, and green is the high school, and you see the different outcomes. Most of those numbers, most of them fall over that 2.5 right there in that middle mark. They thought that they were above average in terms of success. We see elementary feeling more successful through the MTSS program. Priority 5 was focused on communication with parents in the community. The audit found that this was a priority that had continued growth over the last 3 years. The perception exists that the district does a better job communicating to parents than it does to the community. But the overall culture of communication was positive. And then finally, priority 6, no extra slides for these. The superintendent's priority for this was to focus on completing the merger and being fiscally responsible. The audit found the merger completed. That was an easy one for us to find, and the district finances reflected fiscal health. Section 3 goes into governance and communication around what the board does, the artifacts of the board, right? Your vocabulary and how you work together. This section of the audit studies the current governances and communication culture of the Board of Education. It identifies the caring and problem-solving nature of their service, and thank you so much for that, because this is an incredibly difficult job. And you all do care. You come from different points of view, and you all want to get a job done. This is positive and something to build on. It makes suggestions about possible area of growth for the board, including communication, district access, chain of communication, and professional development. This completes the report that I have for you today. I know the report is much larger, trying to stay within a time frame. It was a pleasure to come in and speak with each one of you, even though some of you were over the phone. It was a pleasure working with the staff, speaking with all the executive administration, all the parents, all the non-certificated staff, community members. Thank you so much.
Are you coming back at 7 o'clock because you're on that agenda also?
At 7 o'clock, I'm going to read the executive summary.
Okay.
It's not going to be the exact same report, so I plan to be much more brief at 7 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Meany?
Do you have anything that stood out to you, positive? Did you have anything that stood out to you that needed the most improvement?
So, when I look at so much of the positive, let's start at the promise. That is, if districts seek out how to brand what they care about, and rarely do districts meet what you guys have done there. And the question is, does it fit with what you want for the kids of Elkhart now? And that's a conversation I would encourage everyone to have. And whether it changes the Elkhart Promise a little bit, because there's great things in there, or whether it renews it as what your focus is, that's positive. The priorities were overwhelmingly met. There was a level of discipline with communicating those 6 priorities in so many artifacts. And those artifacts communicate what you value. And those values are the priorities. There were a few of those instructional strategies that the implementation was lukewarm, but that's how all human systems are. And as I mentioned in the interview, there's an opportunity cost. We couldn't work at everything. There's also something else that happened, this COVID-19 thing, right? That hit us right there in March, and then we got knocked out of school. We've been focused a lot on that. The positives. There are so many beautiful things around this district. My consultants came out, and one of them was smitten with the district and was going around telling me about everything. Mentioned the Career Center 2 times in the portion of his report today, and let's be honest, it's amazing what you guys have built over there. It's beautiful. So there's loads of positive, and the opportunities for improvement are spelled out throughout. And I highly encourage the board to go through together, communicating, collaborating on each one of these elements to make sure that it fits. It only strengthens your process, because at the end of the day, you're the board. You're the ones that are making the decisions about policy and governance for the students at Elkhart. You have a tremendously important job that I know is difficult. And a lot of the suggestions that I'm making here are about trying to make your job, make it, I don't want to say easier to do, but more effective together so you get that job done. Does that answer the question?
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's hard to take a huge audit like this and boil it down like that, but thank you.
This has been a labor of love for me. I have been writing furiously since I left after all these interviews and even conducting interviews apart. It's a gift to come to the district and talk to you guys and lay this out and say this is how we move forward. Thank you. I really did appreciate each one of our conversations. You guys all bring something unique to the table, each one of you, and working together and getting communication and governance down. It'll just help you achieve your mission. So thank you so much.
Out of curiosity, the restorative justice practices percentages and the mindfulness practice percentages were exactly the same across elementary, middle school, and high school. Is that a normal finding?
I'm going to double check that for you.
Okay.
All right. I'm not sure that that's the case.
All right.
If I need to make an update, I will. All right.
Yep. Thank you.
I know that they were really close, though.
Yeah, they're presented here is exactly the same. So, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All I have for my question, so I'm not sure how much time we need.
Okay. We're in recess until 7 p.m.
Nice to meet you. I'll leave it with you. Oh, yeah, I think I let it go. Oh, my gosh, oh, that's
Okay.
please rise and join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Elkhart Promise. Every student is known by name, challenged and supported by highly effective staff, and in partnership with the community, will graduate career, college ready, and life ready. So in the invitation to speech protocol, there's several things, and I had them put out on the sheets for you that I want to point out. One, if you're recording, you should be getting permission from the superintendent to record. Yes, it's in the rules, read them. Second, if you are recording, you are not allowed to make comment, and there is to be no interviews or anything like that. You just record. The next thing, repetitive comments are not allowed. So if we keep having the same comment repeatedly, we will cut off the comments. You will be allowed to comment before we take action on any board item. Student services for the moment of pride, please.
So, exceptional learners, we're very excited tonight, and I have a real passion for what this group is doing. And Lindsay and this team will be able to explain just how far they've come in a very short amount of time and looking about employment and opportunities in our school district for our young adults program. So, in honor of Lindsay and her team's work, I'm going to step aside and let them continue to talk about the amazing stuff they have. A couple things that I want you to know. You have a draft copy of something that will go out after we put it on some nice print of a trifold about the young adult program. And Laura will be coming around to tease you with an exclusive Lions bracelet that they will talk about in short.
Thank you, Mr. England, and thank you, Board, for having us here this evening. My name is Lindsay Cox, and I'm a supervisor of special education for the district. One of the programs that I oversee is the Intense Intervention program. And so as our entire special education guiding coalition has worked over the last year to develop some very specific goals, one of those goals is related around the programming of intense intervention. And specifically, the work that we have done with the young adult program in successfully creating meaningful work opportunities and even paid employment for all 35 of our current students. So joining me today to highlight their success and the work that they have been doing, and we have a student. This is Arturo Gil Bagara, formerly known as Ari. We have paraprofessional Laura Walterhouse, teacher Megan Beneke, and job coach Trish Hutchinson. So without any further ado, I'm going to let them tell you their story.
Hi, I'm Trish Hutchinson. I should tell you how we got to this point. So I've been a job coach now for 3 years in the district. We have had countless opportunities to work at many different places, but we found we couldn't get anybody to hire our students. Very frustrating. Always getting the doors closed in our faces, people saying that they're a liability. They're not a liability. They are one of the greatest assets that I've ever seen. They're loyal, they're trustworthy, they'll do anything you ask them to do, and they'll always do it with a good heart. But we couldn't get anybody to hire more than one student at a time. So I thought, well, let's just start our own business. I happened to run into Tony England one day, skating rink. I was like, hey, why don't we just open our own business? Why don't we employ our own students? Why don't we show off all the creativity and all the talents of all of our students here in Elkhart? Which was how Heart State Coffee Company was born. And that's something that we're going to talk about today in our lecture presentation. So next is Megan. We're going to start this for you, and she's going to tell you about some of the employment that we have started I'll finish up.
So one of the important things that we worked on was the vision, putting together a vision for the hands-on program to equip all students with independence and purpose through community engagement and meaningful work and employment opportunities. We do this through meaningful employment, community engagement, and activities of daily living. So we work on next dollar amount, shopping skills, we take them out to the stores to purchase groceries, to get things ready for cooking, self-care skills. We work on a grooming checklist every morning to make sure they have good grooming skills for their independent life. And communication and self-advocacy is any way that they can help themselves. These are just some of the skills and activities we work on. Social skills, volunteer job sites, paid job sites, teaching responsibility and ways to live after high school outside of the program. This is one of our job sites. One of our students is training and sorting the clothes at the Cove. We've been with them, working with them now for about the last 3 years. They're a really good partner now. They are actually all volunteer based. So if you guys, any of you looking for volunteer placements, or anybody, check them out. They're actually close to me. This is also the shepherd's clothes. It's actually called the Cove now. They sort clothes by sizes, and then I hang them up by sizes. One of our students who has not gone out on job site at all this year went out for the first time, and it was on a different activity day. So this was actually sorting out 8 different hangers, and then they had to rotate them on the top and on the bottom and tie them together at the bottom. So the code actually retells all those hangers together. It was really exciting to see him out there.
That's a huge deal for him.
It was very
That's a huge deal for him.
Yeah. That was the first experience at the city, so I was really excited. This is our bidware. This is kind of like our ceramic molds. We just started doing them about a month ago with the Art Deco and Elizabeth Stokes. It's a project that we're starting to work on. They pour the molds and they wait. They drain everything back out into the drying process, and then they take everything out and they work on sanding everything down. We actually are waiting to get involved enough. It's good enough that we can ship it all the way around the world.
So is that part a global job for our students? This will be something that we can ship all over the globe, and our students will produce all of it. It'll be all, it's all profit for them. Like, they don't have any, there's nothing in it for that. They don't have to invest anything. It'll be all profit for them.
So these are some of the plate particles that we've been working with and some of the skills that we've been doing. Just putting them together. They have to drip dry for a little while, so they learn that process and how long they have to dry. This is the Elkhart Theater. One of our students actually cleaned the windows there. They do a variety of jobs to meet their abilities. So we find things that they're good at, and we definitely focus on it. One of the cafeterias they are doing a paid internship at. Another one of our students did a paid internship.
So these paid internships, these are the first of their kind here in Elkhart Community Schools. We've actually partnered with food services and building services. Our students are now working inside the schools, one of the safest places we can have them if they're going out, starting a new job. It's someplace where they feel safe and comfortable, and this is definitely that place. This is one of our students that works over at Monger, and she will not work anywhere else. She loves it there. She's absolutely dedicated. And for the first time, all these students are getting paid. They're actually on sub lists, and they feel in just like anybody else would in the district. And that's the first time that that's ever happened here in the school system. We have 9 kids that were hired this morning. They're actually on our payroll now.
Artie, where are you working? At Roosevelt. Can you tell us what you do at Roosevelt?
So at Roosevelt, I was helping children, just opening their lunches and wiping the tables and mopping the floors and sweeping.
And what do you think about your job?
It was great. I love being there.
A lot of our students are very excited to come to school every day. They get involved, whether it be the paid internships or the volunteers. They love being in the community, so I'm really happy to have them.
We're at 9 different schools. We've served 9 different schools this year.
And we also work with, Elkhart. We actually clean our own tables at the school that we're hosting at right now, so that's a daily job.
Quite hard together. Yay. Okay, this is the most exciting part for me. So, I don't know if you can tell what she's doing in this, but she's making jewelry for Low Tide Island. Low Tide Island is a company out of Connecticut that was developed by a lady who had a disabled child and couldn't find employment for their students. I call them students, obviously. So she started her own business. She made her own way, and she has built a global company, which is one of the, now are at Whole Foods in Mishawaka. They are now a distributor for Low Tide Island Design. So you can get the jewelry that the students and others with disabilities make from Whole Foods in Mishawaka. I encourage you to come out there and see.
I think that's called a commercial.
Maybe. So they're really talented. They're doing a great job, and we've been able to double our orders since the start of school. And all of the money that they make off the jewelry goes back into their extracurricular activities account so they can go out and have enriching field trips with the staff. So that's really a great thing. And recently they have, oh wait, before we do this one, we have a student-designed lion's bracelet that is being made by Low Tide Island. It's all made by students with disabilities, our students included. But this is the bracelet that our students designed for our school system. So that is our lion's bracelet, designed by our students, produced by our students, and eventually sold by our students. Another commercial, sorry.
How many students do you have in the program?
We currently have 30 students.
30 students, and what age do you have? We service 18 to 22-year-olds,
Just getting started.
students with mild to moderate severe symptoms.
Okay, so at 23, you're no longer able to serve them in our program.
Yep.
So hopefully
By then, we will have them so ready to be employed, that they're going to be able to walk out of here. You know, I don't know if you know it, but people with disabilities and IEPs have an 85% unemployment rate, which to me is unacceptable. There is no reason for that whatsoever. We have lots of able-bodied people that want to work. They want a purpose. They want to have a job that gives them dignity. That's why we created Heart City Coffee Company. So Heart City Coffee Company.
Can you speak to the microphone? That way, I'm sure people in the back and also downstairs can't hear you.
Downstairs. Sorry, I'm trying to be really loud. I'm usually good at that.
Well, if you yell into the microphone, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Bless you.
So we've just gotten the proposal back on the jewelry today. I haven't had a chance to read through the proposal yet, but this is just now started. We just got the initial design back last week and the proposal from Low Tide Island. So we should have something back soon. Yeah, feel free to pass that around and let everybody see it. It's really beautiful. So we have Heart City Coffee Company. Heart City Coffee Company is a coffee business that grinds and sells all their own coffee. We source these beans from the refinery in Goshen, who also partners with ADAC and their Higher Ground coffee cafes. We felt like it was a good fit because we want to make sure that we include the whole community. This is about bringing the community together, and we can continue that by working with the same company that ADAC works with. So we've partnered with them. They're going to mentor us for the first 2 years that we're in business, make sure that we're making a good cup of coffee and grinding the right kind of beans. But this is going to enable us to give jobs to all of our students. We've been able to break this down where every single student has a job. Everybody has something. So we have stamps to stamp the sleeves for the cups, and then the kids are going to have stickers that they put on the other side of those sleeves with words of encouragement, positive messages to send out into the world. So we have Heart City Coffee, which is coffee with purpose. And our 5-year plan is to be in a storefront downtown, and then have the cafe that we have at the freshman division, which we just opened this week. We serve coffee to the staff, breakfast to the staff, and eventually we'll be serving them lunch. All of this is all based on donation, and it's just for experience for our kids, so that when we get to that storefront downtown, once these kids have graduated from our program, they can be employed full-time downtown. So it's going to be a closed loop at some point where we train them from the time they're in high school with the coffee cart that the ladies have going over at the high school. And then eventually they'll come to us for the coffee grinding business, and then eventually out into the community is another business. So we're really proud of what we've done. We've worked really hard, and we started out 5 people down, and we've been able to pull off having 15 kids placed in paid internships in the first 9 weeks. So we're pretty proud. We've done a lot. There. Oh, I think we froze. There we go. So there's our art cafe. Yeah, staff joining us for coffee in the morning. We actually got a special visitor this morning. That was very nice. We're also going to be building gift baskets that will be available for donation and delivery, as well as the delivery coffee service. So if you want to send your staff at your office a coffee party, call me. I'll hook you up. That's my last commercial, I swear.
Nice, good.
Yeah, contact information for a couple of us in the program is on the back of brochures as well, the emails, and then there's our main line to the adult program.
Do you have any questions?
How much are the verses?
I think we're going to be at about a $10 mark. We want to keep it affordable. We want to make sure that everybody has one. It's about a commitment and single item. So.
Do you have the ability to do pods yet? Or just ground coffee?
So I'm getting there.
Okay.
There's a machine, but I gotta get permission to buy it first.
Probably won't be an issue.
Yeah. That was a really good commercial.
Yeah, that was good.
So do you sell like, 5-pound things or whatever of coffee, 3-pound, 1 pound?
Whatever you would like to buy, sir, I will sell it to you.
Okay,
So-
Trish, oh, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Do you have prices for that? Is there a website?
I haven't picked the coffee up yet. I pick it up tomorrow. We ordered 50 pounds of coffee. I ordered 50 pounds of coffee. 50 pounds of coffee, so we'll start grinding and bagging and getting gift baskets ready for the holiday season. Because we're going to run completely off donations for the first 2 years.
So we'll get out the information on how to contact. Right now, we had to get the supplies in before we could, and we had a soft opening with the staff to try to make sure that was up and running. And now that the coffee is coming in, because my guess is this is going to become pretty popular pretty quick, and if we don't have stuff to sell, we're going to be
Did you know there was a shortage of styrofoam cups?
Yes, because the baker's nut is only selling large coffee, which I think is a scheme. I'm like,
So while we're doing commercials, my business, I do a client appreciation tree between Thanksgiving and Christmas every year, which I give gifts to all my customers that come in during that time frame. So I would like to order 10 1-pound bags to put under my tree.
Did you get multiple flavors of coffee? Like,
Oh, yeah, girl.
did you get Jamaican Me Crazy?
Like, I'm a snob when it comes to coffee.
Did you hear me? Did you get Jamaican Me Crazy? Okay, good. That's all good.
That's one of their best ones.
It is. Jamaican Me Crazy is the best coffee they have, ish, but yeah.
And a lovely decaf for those of you that can't partake.
I really want to encourage you to, try to get a grant to Elkhart Education Foundation. That would be something that they would love to help with, I'm sure.
We hope to find many community sponsors.
Okay.
I know it's more than 5 to 8 minutes, but.
That doesn't matter.
I'm so sorry. I knew I would know.
No,
She told me not to.
No, great. You did great. I'm super proud of you, buddy. You did good.
Awesome.
I'm really proud of you.
We'll now move on to the consent items.
So moved.
I will be abstaining from voting on the consent items since my wife is in the packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Full business?
Dr. Mooney?
Good to be back up here. Seems like just a few minutes ago, what a wonderful presentation. Really neat. Also, very much connected to the Elkhart Promise. I'm Alex McNeese, Dr. Alex McNeese. I did a priority audit for the district where I went in, interviewed board members, we interviewed community members, parents, the superintendent, executive administration, building administration, and we developed this priority audit. Now I'm going to share with the board right now just the executive summary. Starts on page 7 of it if you want to follow along. Section 1, the Elkhart Promise. The audit evaluated the implementation of the district's mission, the Elkhart Promise. The Elkhart Promise was found granted on multiple artifacts. The audit found staff, both instructional and non-instructional, parents, and the community member had a strong grasp of the goals and purpose of the district through the promise. Work needs to be done around making sure the promise still aligns with the board's intent. That conversation can act as a way to renew the focus of the promise and make sure all elements of the district culture align to the promise. The second section was on the 6 priorities of the superintendent. Those were developed when the superintendent saw the promise and said in a community listening session, they have been revised over time. The 6 priorities, the audit looked at the 6 priorities of the superintendent. Through survey tools, observation, and interviews, the audit found the 6 priorities had become or were currently developing as part of the Elkhart culture. Priority 1, focused on the instructional practices to help individual and institutional health. The audit found that 2 of the 4 practices had become strong parts of the instructional culture. The implementation of the other 2 had begun, but had not taken root in the instructional culture. Some variants existed at elementary, middle, and high school. The audit found some conflicting messages regarding this priority of the superintendent and suggested the need for realignment around this priority. Priority 2, focused on the development of teacher collaborative teams in the professional learning community system. The audit found a strong level of integration of these concepts into the instructional culture. The audit also identified some challenges that the district faces as it moves forward. Priority 3 focused on the implementation of core curriculum. The audit found this priority to be successful while balancing both the need for new materials and training to properly implement. Priority 4 focused on the intervention models for students. This is part of the instructional culture at Elkhart. In Elkhart, it was also suggested that this could be a possible area of growth through identification of instructional strategies and the process to implement those best practices. Priority 5 focused on the communication with parents and the community. The audit found that this was a priority that had continued growth over the last 3 years. The perception exists that the district does a better job communicating with parents and the community, but overall, the culture of communication was positive. Priority 6 focused on completing the merger and being fiscally responsible. The audit found the merger completed and the district finances reflected fiscal health. The third section of the audit was governance and communication. This section of the audit studied the current governance and communication culture of the Board of Education. It identifies the caring and problem-solving nature of their service and makes suggestions for possible areas of growth in communication, district access, chain of communication, professional development. And that completes it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rocky? I would like to continue the discussion here on this priority audit, if that's possible. Here, Troy, would you pass those around? And so that the audience knows what I'm talking about, could you guys help people share? Put these up like 2 pairs like Dr. Denise suggested. And you guys should sit down. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. What I'd like to thank Dr. McNeese for his work in this, and then also I probably should put a caveat to this, was I was the only board member to have voted against Dr. McNeese doing this. I read all 47 pages, and out of that, as Dr. McNeese would say, there are artifacts in there. And what I found the artifacts to be were current words, buzzwords, keywords that we use in our school corporation and also in this business. And so anyhow, and I ranked them in order as they, by the quantity that they appeared in the report. And like you can see at the top, there's 23 items. The last item was inclusive, which is the 23rd item. There were more words in there I probably could have pulled out, but those are the ones that caught my eye. And you can see that that was only referenced once. Equity was referenced once. Mediation referenced once. You go down to the red line, behavior was referenced 15 times, curriculum 17 times, and then you go all the way to the bottom, and you see that the board is referenced 170 times, okay? And what I'm trying to point out here is the fact that, yeah, I agree that there is a problem here, okay? And what I want to see is that what is in the bottom half with the lowest scoring numbers as far as references, okay, rigor and academics should definitely be in the first 11 of this group, along with curriculum. And so it has to do with our focus of where we're at. And what I'm saying is that I've identified there's a yellow thing about mid-page there that says the disconnect. I, as a board member, am saying that academics, rigor, and curriculum need to be in our first 5 priorities here, okay? We need to reevaluate our priorities. I did this as a summary to put together 47 pages of work out there. I had, personally, mathematically, this is the way I look at things. So anyhow, if anybody has any questions for me about that, I would be more than happy to answer them. But again, this was done in an afternoon of work. This only represents the work of Doug Weaver, nobody else on this board. And I do appreciate Dr. McNeese for giving us valuable information for me to assemble this. So, thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Is there any other discussion on the priority audit? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
So, board members, in front of you, I have provided you the numbers from the last couple of weeks, as I have been doing as a running tally of where we are with student positives and staff positives and close contact. Over the past couple of weeks, those positive cases have been 26 and 30, and then so far this week we have 16 positive, and our number of close contacts were down to 6 and 35 over the last couple of weeks, 41 total over that time period, and the number of close contacts this week so far is 31. I did provide you at the bottom of the figures there that if I looked at the first 2 weeks of our mask mandate, the last days of August and the first week of September, that over that time we had 238 positive cases at that time and 721 close contacts. As of our last 2 full weeks of school, we were down to 56 positive cases over that 2-week period and 41 close contacts. So we have seen during that time a 76% reduction in our number of positive cases and a 94% reduction in the number of close contacts. So given that COVID-19 cases are down nearly 60% across the country, we're down about 76% within the district, and our close contacts have greatly reduced. We've had 7 straight weeks of positivity decline and just a little uptick that first week of November with a few more students. In addition to that, the approval of the Pfizer vaccine for children ages 5 to 11, and it is approximately 91% effective in preventing COVID-19. in light of that and the work that we're continuing to do within the district and the placement of our Trio Plus air filters that have been explained at a previous session with you, based on all that information, I would make the recommendation that the district move to math optional beginning tomorrow. And at this point, I would ask Mr. Gianesi to come up and kind of share with us again what these units do in our classroom and why it is a mitigation technique.
Good evening. So this is one of our Trio Plus units. We had a short time frame over the summer to find an air purifier that we felt would meet all of the district.
Sorry, turning on volume for you.
So anyway, so we had a group of us from building services and our operations group that reviewed a number of these units. Let me tell you, if you ever want to get in the business of air purifiers, stand in line. The number of companies that contact us is unbelievable. So we used 3 of our local vendors that helped us with other things that we purchased. They provided us with models to look at, and we ultimately selected this unit for a number of reasons, including cost, efficiency, and availability. We were able to purchase 1,200 of these once we received confirmation of our ESSER funding in June and have them in place by the time school starts. So we purchased 1,200 because we have approximately 760 classrooms, plus we have all the offices, nurses' offices, etc. So we have distributed roughly 950. We have a few extra that are left. A few extra, maybe 250. That way we can roll out a few more. With the recommendation tonight, if it's approved, we're going to roll out additional units for cafeterias and gyms. They're bigger spaces, they're a little harder to treat, but we have enough units to do so. So with that, rather than explain exactly how this unit works, we're going to show you a quick 1-minute video. But so you know that that is the unit that you're seeing on the screen is the unit that we have. I'm going to take this one apart on videos.
The Trio Plus is a UVC, PCO, and HEPA portable air purifier for managing germs, gases, and particulates. A free filter captures hair and dander. The HEPA H13 medical grade quality filter captures mold, bacteria, dust, dander, pollen, and viruses as small as 0.3 microns. The activated carbon filter holds almost 10 times more carbon than most filters to absorb toxic gas and odors from smoke, household products, and cleaners. Then, Parasol VOC reduction technology uses photoreactive oxidation to break down toxic volatile organic compounds to save CO2 and water vapor. Finally, UVC germicidal technology further reduces bacteria, viruses, mold, and fungi. To learn more, visit our website today.
So just to give you a little bit of additional information, you can see what's laid out in front of you, and that's just the video. Company data states that this HEPA filter removes 99.97%, I want to make sure it is, of particles 3 micron or smaller, down to 1 micron. Excuse me. So that's wonderful, but with these UV lights, they're stating 99.99%. So based upon all the data, everything we looked at, we felt this was the best unit. And I'll be honest with you, we hope it works.
And Tony, how often do those units turn the air over in an average classroom?
Oh, I'm sorry. These will turn over the air twice an hour. So every 30 minutes, it completely scrubs all of the air in a 900 square foot classroom, which is average. They're roughly 8,100 cubic feet, and they measure this on cubic feet. So it does a little over 4,000 cubic feet every 30 minutes.
How often do you have to change the filters?
The filters are recommended to be changed every 2,000 hours. And actually, you can see this one needs to be like that because it's been running since the start of school. And we figured based upon the schedule that's provided, that is what we're going to be able to do here in the near future, because the timing will put us right about Christmas recess.
And are they in every classroom?
They are in every full-size classroom. So we started with putting them in every full-size classroom. So we have approximately 760 full-size classrooms across the district.
Is there going to be plans to put them in those smaller classrooms too, or do they have different size units for different size rooms?
When we began, we did not plan to put them in the smaller, what I call the interventionist rooms. But we're going to see how everything rolls out after tomorrow with the units going to the cafeterias and gyms. We'll see how many are left and what else we can do. Unfortunately, there are so many small rooms that are utilized that we would probably be in another double the order. So.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Can I ask, are we in discussion or not?
We haven't had a motion.
Oh, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
What's the motion?
So we would go mask optional beginning November 10th.
Now, board discussion.
I just have a question. So I noticed on a couple of things that you handed out to us that there were contingencies for when we're short-staffed, possibly needing to go to e-learning days in those school buildings. So how short-staffed are we right now, and what would an uptick in possible numbers do to that potential?
There have been kind of three buildings where we've seen some staff shortages, to the point where there were concerns by those building principals regarding our ability to have staff and keep that safe. So we're monitoring those. It is between other reasons that people are out, other sickness, those kind of things. It will be up to see what happens. I mean, with the overall case counts going down nationally, it's not as severe as it was a few weeks ago, so we don't know what it's going to do. But we could be in a position where if we have employees out because of COVID, in addition to regular sickness and other things that are going on, that we may hit that threshold to where we would need to move to e-learning for a couple days until we get staff back.
So like I just had experience with my grandson having been masked in a group of masked students, right? So he had a close contact, and then they didn't end up having to lose any school time because they were all masked and they didn't develop symptoms. So that's how that went. How different is it going to be if we do this right away? Let's say for elementary kids that don't have that opportunity to have their immunity yet, because it's a 2-dose vaccine, to get their immunity, that's actually another 14 days after that, to get their full immunity. How difficult is it going to be for us to have, if there are close contacts, keeping kids out of school because the whole priorities have changed? Are you able to help me understand how hard that's going to be?
So on this chart, what changes, because we have moved to a no longer mask mandated or a fully masked environment, and what the requirements are is that if you're fully vaccinated, there's no quarantine that's necessary. Whether you're masked or unmasked, because overall the environment is not masked, then that is where we would have the quarantining that would have to happen for close contacts. And the second chart that I provided you are the options for how you could return. So you can return on the 8th day after you have a negative PRC test on day 5, 6, or 7. You can return on the 11th day following that exposure, as long as you wear masks and would separate and those kind of things without being tested. And then if you come back on the 15th day, you wouldn't have to take any extra precautions.
Okay, so this is not at our, we don't get to choose whether we do this or not. if this is a legal requirement from the state?
Well, when we're looking at the guidance that is on the back document that I gave you, that is the directions with Indiana code and this control measures, that's where that's lifted from.
The control measures are a state, it's a legal thing that we.
It is a document coming from the Indiana Department of Health and provides us that guidance of what we do.
So just very quickly, I want to point out that, this has not come with, no thought whatsoever. We've been hashing things out back and forth consistently. This was not brought to any of our attention until this evening, and so that's kind of why we were a little bit late starting our meeting, because this kind of just got dropped on our in front of us. And
well, these were the procedures that we had before.
Correct, but we didn't really discuss any of those before going in, and it goes back to the question of what we wanted to discuss when we were outside here, but I guess I'll just bring it up. Like, when we go back and forth to all of the other school districts that are inside of our county, not only just, we can talk about numbers, students versus staff, et cetera. We have many schools inside of our county that they would have to follow the same thing. So if these are rules that are, impacted, and they're not. I've spent quite a bit of time talking to schools. Many of our schools have been mask optional or non-masked, and in talking to them, they're not following the same basis. So I don't know how we didn't get to where we were discussing this beforehand, and I feel like right now what's happening is kind of like, to me, again, how I felt when we dropped the mask down, and I'm not going against anybody because I know we need to be very careful in everything that we do, but I feel like it was the same experience of what we had when we made the vote to go to masks. And we did get an audit from Dr. McNeese that talked about communication and different things, and this is one of those opportunities where I feel like there's communication happening in certain areas, and then charts getting dropped down onto us that we weren't really prepared for.
These were the procedures that were in place when we were mask optional at the beginning of the year.
But we never determined fully vaccinated or non-vaccinated. So when did we get into deciding that we were going to discern between fully vaccinated and?
That's been in here since September.
Okay, but.
Can I interrupt for a minute? Can I ask you to your microphone?
Okay.
It's
Oh,
pretty
yeah,
clear
the
downstairs.
phase.
And the online people have always said it's kind of low.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Could you direct that a little better?
So when I was informed that this is the direction the board wanted to go, my folks revisited and went back to these documents and picked up the guidance that we had before and reviewed that to see if it was in line. And this is what we had before. So I'm just bringing forward what we had before.
I asked,
and then the only reason I'm providing this is because Babette asked, what are the exact requirements and what is it that we're operating from? So I wanted to provide that to all board members so you all had it.
I wanted to understand what was legal and what was within our purview to be able to decide. So masking and not masking is within our purview to decide. And so there's a legal, it says that we don't have the parameter when it comes to doing this. So that's why we've been doing it this way all along through student services, et cetera. As far as I knew, I only got worried, thinking about how difficult it would be to have masks off and then say, oh, well, if there's a 2%, then we need to put it back on. And then all of this changes again. And then you have people a lot more angry the second time around, like, well, we've had them off and, whatever. But so is that correct that you're going to do a 2%, like if a building has a 2% increase in cases?
So that was the recommendation that was coming from the board to be part of what we would do, is that if a building would hit 2%, that building was in May.
And so did we also, is that written anywhere where?
Well, that was the thing I was wanting to clarify as we went through discussion with all of you to make sure that that was what you wanted to be part of it as well.
So I was not privy to this other discussion that, where there were these parameters, including the 2%. I'm still catching up on that. So what I'm trying to understand is if there's, were those parameters, from what I understand, we're also thinking that that was when we were in yellow. Our county numbers were then in yellow. Is that correct? Was that part of your guys' parameters that we would need to be in yellow? I thought that was one of the things that you guys had written down on when you discussed your points without myself or Daisy. You guys discussed that, and I saw that on that, after you guys gave it to us subsequently, I saw that you had it written down that we would be in yellow, so it would be an obvious choice.
Well, I don't know about coverage. I'm not covered.
Rocky, can you just kind of explain what the process was?
Well, and we were anticipating that we might be in yellow. We were in yellow when school started, but, you know, it's still, when you look at the numbers, you know, this supports going mask optional. Now, hopefully, the county goes into yellow this week, but, you know, we don't have any control over that. What we have control over is this, and looking at the numbers. And when the mask mandate was passed, you know, we said we were going to reevaluate this, and we have been on a weekly basis, you know, or meetingly basis. And now the numbers have dropped to the point that it supports going mask optional. Whether the rest of the county is in yellow or not, you know, the schools, and the fact of the matter is, the science supports that the schools have a much lower positivity rate than the general public does anyway. You know, so our kids are safer in the schools, whether it's because of these machines or whatever. You know, so we're doing the things that we need to do to keep our students safe, and now is the time to take the mask off. Or, let me clarify, make it mask optional. So those folks who feel safer wearing masks or having their students in masks, that is always an option.
Okay, I'm fine with understanding your comments. I just thought that the way that you had decided upon those comments had something, at least on the information I read, had something to do with us needing to be in yellow.
And
no, it was just one of the factors.
And one of the other things that was brought up was the opportunity for those who would choose a vaccine. And in looking at the way that the county has been going, the opportunity has been there for adults to get a vaccine. We haven't seen the vaccine rates go up, even though we provide multiple facilities, we provide, you know, neighborhood trucks, we provide all of this. Then it went to the 11 to 18-year-olds, and you still did not see a jump in vaccination rates, which is an indicator that if we're waiting for 5 to 11-year-olds to get vaccinated, we're staying the same way throughout the county. If a family of an adult or a family is wanting to get their children vaccinated, that's going to be their choice, and it's proving that between the 11 to 18-year-old range on whether or not a school system would keep their masks on or make it very clearly optional. It needs to be such a very respected aspect for those that want their children and a staff member not, or those that do. We shouldn't, you know, make anybody feel uncomfortable with their choices. But we haven't seen an increase in vaccination rates in Elkhart County either way.
So according to some of the health officials that I spoke with, the fact that we do have a lower vaccination rate in Elkhart County is part of the problem, because oftentimes our kids are safer in the building. They are not getting COVID in the buildings necessarily from each other, but they're getting it outside in a low vaccinated county that and then they bring that to the school building. Now let's hope that before they, you know, are able to spread it to other students, that this machine will take care of it, or, you know, it'll get caught. So I'm just making sure that we understand that the parameters that we can control are masking or not masking, and that I understand. And I understand that there is a consensus among the board that we need to probably move on because our numbers are so low. I contend as well that the numbers being low are because of the masking, and that since we masked, we've had a 76% drop in cases and a 90-something% chance or drop in close contact. So the close contact thing is the thing that worries me because of what we don't have control over, the legal part of what we don't have control over, and how difficult I think it's going to be for staff to then, and for parents. If our goal, and all of our goal is to get in-person instruction, that's been my goal from the very beginning. And for me, to not have to have like e-learning, like even just short-staffed, I'm starting to go, oh, we have to have e-learning because everybody wants to be in person. Everybody wants to be in the building. So we got that going, but then if we have a close contact, then all of a sudden we have students that can't come to school again. And that's truly what concerns me, not that this is some sort of a, mass debate. It is about logistics and keeping kids in school to me. So for me, I see this as being a problem if we do have it pick back up. The health professionals that I've been talking to say that we're actually, once we've gone indoors, which it looks like we might have that 4-letter word Friday, maybe, and that will make a natural uptick in numbers, and that uptick will also create that at home, whether we have these filters, which I love those, and I'm glad that we have them. But my goal is to keep kids in school, in-person learning, and hoping that this doesn't become so burdensome that if we have staff out, like for instance, in one of our elementary buildings right now, we have one principal and her assistant principal and her dean are both out with COVID right now. So having to handle some difficult situations actually on her own in a way. I mean, we certainly have Mindy and other people that have jumped to help her out, and I appreciate that, by the way. Thank you very much. But how do we have the capacity? I guess I'm asking you, do we have the capacity to do all of this and keep our kids in the classroom and not have people go crazy? And I think it's a difficult ask to keep kids in the classroom under these circumstances, knowing that, now this is not me. Please understand, this is a control I have no control over. This is the state control piece of it. And so what I'm wondering is the stuff we don't have control over, how difficult is it going to be for us to keep kids in the classroom and not quarantine? So that then we have everybody going, but my kid's quarantined, and I'm like, I want your kid quarantined. I want them to be safe and in school and in-person instruction, and all of those things are important, but we don't have the control over that piece. So I'm just asking,
we will do the best we can. I mean, with where numbers are at the moment, it's manageable.
It's manageable now.
Dr. Tolheimer, if, like, when the kids are at home, whether it's 8, 11, or 15 days, how are they getting their instruction or homework?
Providing them work as they would if they were sick for a shorter period of time.
So I'm wondering also if the elementary kids who oftentimes have asymptomatic spread, if they have the opportunity, and I don't think it's fair for us to say, well, these people didn't get vaccines, so these people didn't get vaccines, so these people won't get vaccines. I'm not sure that conjecture is fair. I think that there's a lot of people that are wanting to get their kids, their 5 to 11-year-olds vaccinated, and I'm really excited for my grandkids. They were super excited, and I'm talking about. So what I'm wondering is if I could make a motion, or I don't know, how do I say this? I'm not sure how to say this in our proper decorum. So I would like to explore the board's feeling about carving out the elementary kids, and seeing if we could wait 2 weeks for the first, vaccination immunity to take place. So the next vaccination, so my grandkids got vaccinated probably as quick as you can. So their next appointment is like November 29th. It'd be just like the end of November. It would probably coincide with the governor's suggested emergency declaration that we continue doing what we're doing to try to get beyond COVID so that we don't have this up and down cycle that we kind of have to just keep mitigating. So that's a thought, and I would like to at least explore the board's feelings about seeing if we could wait.
Can I ask a question real quick before? Okay, when we were talking about the quarantining, et cetera, one of the things that you had said was contact tracing legal? Like, was it a legal requirement? And you answered no, it's not a legal requirement?
It is a legal requirement. It's in the executive order in that part that's highlighted in yellow.
But do we have the opportunity to discern how we work the contact tracing? Because I keep going back to how are other schools doing it that have not had.
Not to follow this guidance from the State Department of Health.
So you can choose to not follow the guidance, and there's no. I mean, I just want to make sure that I'm like, yeah. Hold on, please. You guys, hold on. If there is, so it is a choice of the school to choose how they want to handle it, because
from my perspective, I want to make sure that if we are making choices, we are doing them within the parameters that are provided by the state. And these control measures and a very strongly worded letter that came from Dr. Burks and the things that we've received have indicated this is the direction we should go.
And I'm not challenging.
If somebody else decides to do that, that's their prerogative, but I'm responsible for this school.
Right. But I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying, because I read that letter from her also, and she did state in there that it was recommended. It was a recommendation. So I just want to make sure that, like, when we say, because I don't want that coming back to us, when we say, is it a legal obligation that we have to follow these contact tracings? It is highly recommended, a strong recommendation, and that's how schools are getting. So we're choosing the way that we're doing our contact tracing. It's just, I mean, like, that's the truth of the matter.
Dr. Palmer, can I add that we are following CDC guidelines?
Okay.
Which also informs the county, or the state,
right,
then the county department. So it starts with federal guidelines. So the contact tracing suggestions, they've been adjustable, and they've adjusted along the way to like numbers and dashboards to say our infection rate. This is how we're able to consider going back to mask options.
Right.
The thing is, it sends us back to the 6 feet, which we were excused from by the executive order of the governor. And you contact trace at 3 feet because we were a mask distance. So going optional means that we do have to do contact tracing at 6 feet.
Of 15 minutes, of 6 feet of 15-minute direct contact. See, that's what I'm not seeing in here, and that's what I'm kind of pushing a little bit, is that nowhere on the paperwork does it state that 6 feet is direct contact. That's face-to-face, nonstop. So if I was sitting with you.
For 15 minutes.
Right, but if I got up and walked away and went to the bathroom, the 15 minutes resets itself, and that's something that, I'm not doing that.
15 minutes total.
Yeah, it could be 15 minutes over an hour.
But then how do we adjust that to the machines that refiltrate the air every half hour? So these are the things that, and I'm not challenging, I'm just saying that the words that we're using are legal obligation, but then it's like the word suggestions and recommendations and all of these words twist and turn all the way around. And that's why this being discussed with us after this is over with, after we do the vote or your amendment to a carve out or however we handle it, we need to kind of maybe rehash this, because we don't even have that verbiage in there. And I was under the impression that we had agreed that we were never going to do a vaccinated versus unvaccinated option, because, in our work.
That's what's in here, and the CDC guidance.
Wow. Okay. So do you want to, stick your, like, do your word, like, do you, like, know how you want to say it?
You know, I'm not trying to be.
Oh, I mean, I just want to know how you want to do
I'm a
your
little
part.
bit of a rule follower. Also, you know, I have a tendency to, and when it comes to medical health and well-being of a lot of kids that I feel like I have some care for. I'm responsible as a board member to say yes or no to all of this. And if someone would be sick or die under my watch, you know, I feel a grave responsibility. So my making sure that I understand the actual law versus suggestions versus what they said we have control over is partially, you should be extremely happy that I care this much about your kids, about the kids that I want to make sure stay safe, and even the relatives and their extended families that they could possibly have transmit this to. And whether you believe it's nothing more than a flu or whatever, I mean, I'm not going to be here to debate any of that because there's enough information out there and disinformation out there that will have people at odds for a very long time over that. I'm not here to I'm not here to debate all of that. I'm here to try to figure out from the guidelines that we were given what is legal, that we're obligated to follow, and how unwieldy that could possibly be. And will that keep some of our kids out of the classroom? Because I would prefer to have our kids in the classroom. And so if that's going to be an unwieldy choice, could we have the opportunity for more children between the ages of 5 and 11 to have that opportunity to get the vaccine? Whether it's, you agree about vaccine in here or not, I'm not here to debate that. I have a personal choice that I feel that we should have this opportunity to get the kids more, a greater amount of immunity since it's now available.
Okay, so I'm just trying to clearly state why I keep going back to the Sarita, the conversation. After July 1st, 2021, local school boards will be responsible for implementing whatever measures and restrictions deemed necessary and prudent to address the impact and spread of COVID-19 for their buildings, facilities, grounds, including transportation. Educational governing bodies are encouraged to follow Centers of Disease Control and guidance. So it is, you know, we're going in circles. And I just want to let you guys know that I care also, and as do every other board members, about the welfare of your children. We love your children and everybody else's children inside the school district and outside of the school district. So we are all in this together.
All of us. And me saying I care doesn't negate someone else's care, and make sure you understand that.
Seriously.
Okay?
So are you going to make a motion?
I would like, so could I ask our attorney what our legal?
Well, I think the answer is, there's a motion on the table, correct?
Correct.
The motion is to go match optional. The question tomorrow. So what we have is a proposed amendment to go match optional for grades 7 through 12 with elementary schools going math optional 2 weeks later. That's what I think I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, she's getting ready to put a motion out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry.
So I'm not sure why.
So I was wanting you to be able to say it, because Deb said it for you, but you have to put it out there.
Okay. What he said, no.
You have to say it.
So am I still able to ask you about the legal part of it?
No, not yet. You have to have a second. You have to have a second.
She hasn't made a motion. You have to make a motion. A motion to amend, then it has to be seconded. If there is no second, it dies from a lack of second.
Okay, I make a motion to amend our math mandate so that we go math optional tomorrow for grade 7 to 12, and 2 weeks later, math optional for our 5 to 11-year-olds that will then be able to have their second vaccine dose. And, that's it. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Seeing none, it dies due to lack of second.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion from the board on the original motion that we go mask optional starting tomorrow?
Yes. So Rita, I do have a question on the quarantine chart. Currently, if a individual is wearing a mask and tests positive for COVID-19, and the close contact is determined, and they're also wearing a mask, right? Because we're masked, they are not quarantined, as long as they're asymptomatic.
Can you repeat it one more time?
So currently, because the person who tested positive for COVID-19 is wearing a mask, and someone is determined to be a close contact with that individual and is asymptomatic, they are not quarantined at home. They are still in school, as long as they're asymptomatic, correct?
Are they wearing a mask?
They are wearing a mask.
That's correct.
Because we're fully masked as an institute, all of our buildings are fully masked now.
And so under the chart, that same scenario, fully masked, test positive for COVID-19, close contact, fully masked, they now have to go quarantine at home?
Yes, because we are a mask optional setting.
And that's really what makes it difficult, because you do have kids that are not masked. Also, I want to say, hopefully we don't forget, that our transportation is under TSA. Totally different. So that's under federal mandate, January 22nd. I believe 22nd, 22nd, January 18th.
So even though we are mask optional in the classrooms, on the buses, by federal rules, they must wear masks.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion from the board? Do you have any?
I'd like to comment on this. I find that, the fully vaccinated, the information that has come out from Israel and also from the UK is stating that fully vaccinated people have the ability to spread the virus. They have the ability to connect or get the virus and stuff and get sick from it again. So, but if you go across the thing, no quarantine, monitor symptoms for 14 days, no quarantine, monitor symptoms for 14 days. This is pure bunk, okay? It makes no logical sense anymore for anyone. And so anyhow, what I would ask Mr. Thorne next week or whenever he gets around to it is say, okay, what are the exact legal requirements that this school corporation has to fulfill? I hear CDC guidelines. I hear executive orders and stuff like that. I hear recommendations, okay? Well, I'll tell you what, if it's a recommendation, to me it's a suggestion. I can do it or not do it, okay? It's up to us. The other thing is that this school corporation, if I have anything to say about it, will be completely neutral on vaccinations. And we will not be doing vaccinations of COVID in-house. That's me, though. That's not the rest of this board. Now, I'm well tired of all of this. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion from the board? Do we have any discussion from the public? Angela?
Okay, so, like this.
Come up to them.
Please come up.
Same as if you're doing the end of speech, name, address, etc. Oh, yeah.
Okay, but the microphone, because we keep hearing that it's very hard to hear from outside, and there's people in there. Okay. That's why I keep stressing that. Is this part of my whole 3 minutes, or just for the subject?
This is just the discussion.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Angela Whitlam. So I just went out in the hallway and asked Tony, those air purifiers that you've had, they have been in classrooms since August, since before schools or students returned to school. I'm just concerned and curious why they were never brought up before, and now that there's vaccines available for kids, now they're brought up. So we were taking precautions from the very beginning. So I'm a little confused on that. If you guys didn't know that they were in the classroom the whole time?
We knew. We've had a demonstration of it in the past.
They didn't discuss it at board flyer and a graphic with text. But then looking at the COVID chart, you said, Dr. T, that at the beginning of the year, because we were mask optional, that kids had to quarantine at home. That was not the case. In the beginning of the year, because we're mask optional, if kids were close contact traced, they had the option of wearing a mask for 14 days, and parents would have to provide transportation and could not ride the school bus. But now your protocols are saying that they have to quarantine at home because they're unvaccinated. And I've gone over it again with this segregation of vaccinated versus unvaccinated. I've talked to Ms. Williams in September, and she informed me that your COVID task force looks at the CDC recommendations and Indiana Department of Health, but they do not go out and look at research themselves. So they just take the word of the CDC.
I will just share here what Mr. Thorne and I just discussed. The executive order references to this document, and in this document there are shall provisions regarding these things. So I'm going to be recommending that we follow shall provisions that are provided to us as recommendations, because shall has a different weight of language legally than can or might or could.
Okay.
Which the definition is strong assertion or intention.
In the Department of Health, I just pulled this up, for the fall of 2021 back to school. After July 1st, 2021, local school boards will be responsible for implementing whatever measures and restrictions deemed necessary and prudent to address the impact and spread of COVID-19 for their buildings, facilities, and grounds, including transportation, which we know is a federal mandate, so you have to wear a mask. But that does mean that you can't allow kids who have been close contact to ride transportation if they're wearing a mask. Educational governing bodies are encouraged to follow Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, and Indiana Department of Health guidance. Are encouraged to. That does not mean that you have to. This is recommendation. It's right there on the Indiana Department of Health. So you keep saying that you have to follow those guidelines, but again, Indiana Department of Health is saying that you don't, that you get to make up your own rules. So I'm not understanding why if you're Ms. Bowling was asking about legality of it, and she has every right to, it's legality of it. So I'm just not understanding, and I will agree with Ms. Bowling about the issues with quarantining these kids at home. You're losing educational value. These kids are losing education because you're making them quarantine 8, 10, 14 days. It also says in here that if you are close contact and vaccinated, then you are supposed to get tested 5 to 7 days later, and that was just updated October 22nd of 2021. But you're not going to follow those rules. So it's just a little frustrating because it's back and forth, but there's no, you're just doing it just to do it. And what's happening is the kids are going to be the ones who suffer because they're going to be out of school. So that's where my problem is. So I will agree with Ms. Bowling on that. That is a huge issue. They've already lost a year and a half of education. They're so far behind. If anybody has ever stepped foot in a classroom this year, you realize that they're so far behind. Oh, is it my 3 minutes? Do I only get 3 minutes?
That's it.
Well, no.
3 minutes.
Thank you. Let me go over. I need instructions at this point.
It says right in the rules, 3 minutes.
Sorry,
Well, it was my fault. I said discussion, so I kind of made up my own rules.
You gotta tell me what.
No, it's 3 minutes.
Okay.
That's what it says. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I recognize who talks.
I was just pointing out that there was a hand back there, that's all.
Dr. Mark Wendell, I want to thank the board again, as always. I really have found through this whole thing that although you're never going to make everybody happy, the vast majority of the board has been very open to looking at this issue, I think, as objectively as possible. And I sincerely want to thank you for that. I'm ecstatic that we've at least gotten to the point that we're going to be voting about this issue tonight. I think obviously this issue is super important to the public. Look at the number of people here, not only tonight, but every single meeting that I've attended since we passed this mask mandate. It is obviously a favor of making the masks optional. As I think, Mr. Enfield pointed out, it's a very good point, and Mrs. Maltz said also, this in no way prevents concerned parents from having their children wear masks. It doesn't prevent them, it's just about making it optional. So I think it's important to bring up a point that virtually all of the medical community and scientific community is in agreement that children, especially young children, are the single group with the least risk from COVID-19. And if they have a symptomatic case, they also tend to have the lowest viral loads, which means that they're the least risk to adults around them, such as our staff, teachers, and spreading it to other adults. I did not intend to talk about vaccines tonight, but because it was brought up, I'm very concerned about that, as I would say many parents are, that vaccines are not the answer. And I mention this because it pertains to what I just mentioned. Because children are the least risk group, the messenger RNA vaccines are not without serious risk. All you have to do is read the Pfizer FDA fact sheet, which lists serious events, adverse events such as death, prolonged hospitalization, acute anaphylactic allergic reactions, serious heart conditions such as myocarditis and pericarditis, especially among young boys, and ironically altered immunity that could reduce their ability to fight off infections in the future if they get exposed to the COVID at a later date. However, the real thing I want to bring up tonight is that my hope is that we can get back to the business of educating our children. We do not, there are so many other important issues that we need to discuss that parents want to bring to the board. Teachers have important work to do, and the mask mandate is a hindrance to children and teachers, and it's been a fruitless waste of so many resources and so much energy. Finally, I want to remind everybody here that ultimately this is the issue of health freedom. Parents have rights to make healthcare choices for their dependent children and themselves. No school has the right to usurp this critical choice that parents have, and it's unethical and immoral to force or coerce parents to give up their rights to make choices on their behalf.
Ma'am, you want to talk?
Change a little bit what I'm going to talk about. And that's I'm following up with what we're talking about in the CDC guidance, or guidelines, and how that is going to determine then how we're going to do for vaccinations. I spoke last week about it, and about the CDC guidance for vaccination clinics in schools, and how it recommends it, how it schools with school-based.
Hold on.
Yeah.
May I address this? I have
Yeah.
said this plainly and clearly as many times as I can.
Sure.
We as a school district will not mandate this vaccine unless it is added to the state mandated list of vaccines that we're supposed to have all students get. We've said that over and over again. It doesn't have anything to do with the ESSER funds, doesn't have anything to do with anything else. We will not be mandating it and requiring it as a school district unless it becomes a state mandated vaccination like MMR, TB, the other ones that students get. And then in that instance, there are the exemptions that students are allowed to get. So everyone, please hear that and put that issue to rest.
Okay, I haven't had that stated.
Okay.
Sorry.
I mean, I've answered it numerous times to people. I've said it before, but, and it just keeps coming up, and I'm wanting to be very clear
Thank you. Yeah,
that this is not something that we're going to do.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay?
Is there anybody else in this room that wishes to speak? Yeah, I don't want to wait. Come on up.
All right. Thanks for the warm welcome.
Anytime. We love seeing you here.
No, I appreciate it. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Amber Hart, I have 4 children within the school system, 54588 Sundale Place, Elkhart, Indiana. This is my second time speaking in front of the board, respectfully requesting that the mandate be lifted and allow the students of Elkhart Community Schools the right to choose to wear masks. The bullying and the hypocrisy, thank you, for all the adults here. That's stemming from the mask mandate is displayed at every tier of the system, and it only seems to be getting more aggressive. Speaking as a parent of 4 students in 3 different schools and a friend of multiple teachers. You have children tattling and bullying other kids, trying to play mask police. You have teachers who are taking their masks off in class and then invading the personal space of students by pacing through, which causes the students to be super paranoid. We did that to them. You know, these kids have been forced to feel paranoid by all of the social restrictions that have been put into place over the past year and a half, but you have teachers that are violating that. And the mask mandate says it's the rules, and we all have to wear masks. So, you know, it's very upsetting for the kids the way it's set up right now, and it's confusing. You have staff members bullying other staff members, constantly reminding all of the grown adults to cover your nose, put your mask up. The poor bus drivers, I can't even imagine. At the highest tier of decision making, you also have pro-mask decision makers who have wanted their right to choose by appearing in public settings without masks within the past 3 months. That's factual. It's wrong. The morale of the school is disintegrating right in front of us at every level, and watching the damage is really disappointing for those of us who are really fighting and rooting for Elkhart. Like, we really are. And we want to be able to continue to do that, but the morale and the bullying over the mask is just so damaging to my friends, all 4 of my kids. I'm simply here to ask for respect for my family, the freedom to choose, and an opportunity to implement some damage control instead of continuing to pit people against each other, which is what's happening. I have 50 seconds left, so I just want to make a quick comment. I know you said that the vaccines won't be mandated, and I trust you. I think you're a man of your word. But when the Elkhart County Health Department releases posters, and I have the poster in front of me, the screenshot, and it's bright and colorful, and it has all the kids on it, and it's you know, the vaccine is now available for kids that are your age, or you 5 to 11 years old. The poster is right here. So it's really hard for us to believe that it's not going to be mandated when I have this colorful poster with little kids and balloons, and it's bright and it's attractive. It's on Facebook, and so like this poster was made by Elkhart Health Department, and it's targeting our children. And soon it's going to be thinking about water fountains, which we're not using. So like that's why we are afraid that you're going to mandate it, because it's being pushed so aggressively, and we know it's best for our kids. So, thank you. Thank you. Hello, I'm Megan Howard. This is my first time here.
Address, please.
I'm sorry?
Your address.
1515 Columbian Avenue in Elkhart, 46514.
Thank you.
So I wanted to comment that I do believe the mask should be optional. I believe first and foremost that it is the parent's right and obligation to determine what is best for their child. At the beginning of the first school in 2020, after the shutdown, when schools resumed in August, I withdrew my daughter from public school, and I am homeschooling her now for the 2nd year because I was not happy with the Elkhart Community Schools plan for COVID, and I felt like it was crucial to keep her home to protect her from the new normal, where everyone's masked, you have the distance, and now you guys are talking about quarantining kids, but if they're vaccinated, all they have to do is wear the mask if they have close contact. These kids deserve and need an education. The pandemic, if you look at the definition of a pandemic, we are no longer in a pandemic. I know that's not necessarily for you guys to decide, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. That's not anything that anyone anywhere is discussing. But if you look at the criteria that needs to be met, we have long ago met the criteria for the pandemic to officially be over. I appreciate that you have concern for our children. All of you. lost the volume downstairs. Is that?
Yes, that's actually, yeah.
Okay.
So are they here?
That's what it
Okay.
says.
I just have a question.
Do they want to?
Turn in the card. Are we not reading off?
Not if it's about,
So if it's not different, we still get another opportunity?
yep.
Okay. Yeah, I still have everything. So that's, I was just like, you know, more timely discussion that. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It works when it's.
No, that's it. We're calling them now.
On my cell phone, Susan, like on speaker.
Who determines how many people?
In the rules. That's why I had the rules on the chairs so people could see.
Hello?
Thank you.
Okay. Rocky, you might have to turn her up a little bit on the.
Okay, how do I do that? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I can hear you.
we can hear you now.
Okay. I am Jessica Alvarez. My address is 1716 Canton Street. I am speaking on the mask mandate. I'm just beyond sick of this mask mandate, and I know I'm speaking for many other parents. My kids come home saying that they get headaches from the mask as soon as they're wearing them. They can't breathe. They're being told to sneeze into their mask and to not take them off. They're being punished for wanting to breathe fresh air. This is a control thing and money thing, and we're beyond sick of it. How does it make sense for kids to be made to wear masks, then they have to quarantine for so many days, and they're not even having symptoms or maybe just like a common cold? And there's many other schools that don't have a mask mandate and they're doing just fine. So if the masks work, then the ones that want to wear them are protected from our kids that don't want to wear them. And then when they're having to quarantine for all these days, they're missing out on their education when they should be in the classroom in person. And I just want to say that if people want their kids to wear a mask, that's fine. We're fine with that. But for us parents that don't want our kids to wear a mask, I think that should be an option and go from there.
Have you concluded your comments?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
think the problem is governor. Executive order is still your phone number in your card, that's all I know.
Okay. I think he wanted to.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'll be fixing this to,
I'm really hungry, so
don't eat my arm.
sorry.
Don't eat my arm.
Get over here.
This is
Oh, question my 9 years of not smoking anymore. I love this larger.
So if we're fully vaccinated, there's no quarantine.
Hi, you, Don.
If you are not vaccinated, masked or unmasked, you can come to school immediately as long as you're asymptomatic and wear a mask for 10 days.
But we need to put the 15 minutes direct
All right, folks.
Well, everybody understands.
Okay, they do.
Yeah, everybody
Okay,
understands
okay.
that, because that's been a given for a long time.
Are we ready?
If somebody chooses,
Okay, well,
if somebody chooses not to wear the mask, then they have to quarantine at home.
okay, we'll talk about that more, yes. I mean,
We'll reconvene.
All right. In the area of new business, I am very much pleased to report that we have reached a tentative agreement with the Elkhart Teachers Association. A copy of that tentative agreement was included in the packet. As you might recall, that was discussed with the board during a meeting that took place this past Friday, November the 5th. We also discussed the general outline of that a few weeks earlier than that in executive session. Tonight, the administration is seeking your approval of that tentative agreement. Just to highlight a couple of things, it will result in an increase in the starting salary for teachers to $41,000 and also provide increases for all of our teachers above and beyond that, provided of course that they have met the state requirements of an effective or highly effective evaluation. So we are seeking your approval of that agreement tonight. I want to take a moment to thank both the ETA and the administration team that was involved in the process of negotiating this contract. I think they all worked very hard, and I think we came up with a deal that is really good for our employees and for our students in an effort to retain the very best teachers that we can for this district and for our students.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. I was getting a little nervous there that nobody was moving to approve it. I appreciate your effort.
I've done this before.
Enthusiastic second.
We have a motion and a second. Do you have any discussion from the board?
Yes, I would just like to, thank the collective bargaining teams, the administration, the teachers, to get through this. I think it's at times a challenging, thankless job, and, you know, what you guys finally landed on was desperately needed, for many, many reasons. I know at times I've been in a number of, collective bargaining, situations, and at times things can look, dim, and that you're not going to come together, but you guys, you know, fought through that and came to this, so I applaud both sides on their ability to get this done. So good work all around.
Any other discussion from the board? Any discussion from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Second agenda item that I have this evening, board members, deals with a public hearing tonight, which is pursuant to a notice published on October 28th, related to the possibility of selling 8 acres of property on the Eastwood School campus through a property exchange. If we can manage this correctly, we're going to pop up the map on the screen so you get an idea of what we're talking about. And there are also copies of this document, hopefully still on shares here, unless all of the maps go the school board is not taking action tonight to approve this exchange of property. The proposed resolution calls for the school board to appoint appraisers to appraise the school property proposed to be exchanged, to authorize publication of a notice related to any proposed exchange. The deadline of this proposed notice for submission is November 29th, 2021. Any property that might be offered in exchange for the 8 acres being offered would need to be one tract or contiguous tract of land that are within 1 mile of the Eastwood property. One property, which equals see outlined above that would meet the criteria would be the property that is immediately to the south of the current Eastwood School campus. This property must, in order to qualify, have an appraised value that is equal to or greater than the value of the school corporation's property. If the school corporation were able to acquire this property, it would provide us with the opportunity to improve student pickup and drop-off, and also allow for the construction of additional parking for the school. The school board, I want to make this very clear, has the authority, according to the proposed notice, to reject all bids. Acceptance or rejection of any bid would have to occur during a regularly scheduled board meeting, and the earliest date for such action to take place without the scheduling of a special board meeting would be December the 14th, 2021. It would be the recommendation of the administration that prior to any action to accept a proposed offer, a meeting would be held at the school, at the Eastwood School, with representation from the board and the district president to share additional information related to any offer that might be received by the district in order to gather input from the Eastwood school community and the neighborhoods served by Eastwood before any official board action would be taken to accept this property. If you look at the outline there of the property to the south, and this is direction north to south, you can see there is a small carve out in the northeast corner. That carve out would allow, should that property owner make an offer designed like that for the city of Elkhart to build a fire station at that point in time. That is not part of our proposal. That is something that the city has expressed an interest in. However, if the property owner for that property chose to, they could offer the entire parcel to Elkhart Community Schools and not include that carve out. That is something we will not know the answer to if and until that entity responds to this exchange. Tonight, our next part of this process is to open this up for a public hearing. So, Mr. Hinsel, I would ask that you open this for comment and a public hearing on the proposal to explore this process. There is a change to the resolution that was presented in the original package, making it clear that this may be in the best interest of the school district to accomplish this. But we have not made such a determination, and I think part of that process of making that determination would be to be meeting with people involved with Eastwood schools and those who reside in the community serving Eastwood schools before the board would move forward with any such actual property exchange. I'm going to stand aside.
Open the public hearing. Now you can ask questions.
Yes.
So I guess I'm still a little confused.
Right.
So what do you mean by carve out and so that would be excluded?
That could be excluded. Or included. That will be up to the owners of that property if they were to include or exclude that provision, that parcel from the property.
So Moride owns that little carve out also?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So when you say swap, is it swap and Moride will own the other part, or is this a swap just with the city and they decide what to do with the other part?
The city is not involved, other than the city has expressed an interest in that corner there. The city is not involved in this swap. What would happen if, again, if this were approved by the board, and again, that cannot happen until after we receive bids, Moride, presuming they come through as this, would own the Lot 2 parcel, and Elkhart Community Schools would own the parcel to the south of the building.
How close is, if we do swap, how close is that to the school? And like, if they do something that's very noisy, or if there's a lot of trucks coming through, we wouldn't have any control over that, or how much noise could possibly transfer to the school?
What I am told their desire to do is to, if you look to the south of that school parcel, Lot 2, their plan is to put more paved parking for taxis. so not to actually build any buildings at that point in time. Now, obviously, if they own the property, I can't do that in the future, but that's what we are told to be their plan, if this were to go through.
Mind helping me? I normally really did this now, which is just really bothering me.
I got this.
Confusing me.
Troy's
No, they own that
Troy's
part.
doing a great job.
No, this part.
They own their part.
Okay, but no, they own this part.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, show me where, is it Bennington that bought the? That's to the north. That's the north. Okay, so thank you. I'm going north now.
That's that building right there.
Correct. So in our playground, thank you, our playground is kind of like close to that, because what I understood, I walked this today with a 20-year educator, and who has a lot of stake in this. And so that is a problem over there, being so close to that business, because they're experiencing some adverse things that they'd like their students not to be exposed to as much. Is that, I'm just wondering, like, could that problem possibly be solved? I mean, that's really nice and adjacent and close to the school, so I don't see how, I'm trying to figure out, how do you do this without, like, losing your soccer field, losing your, you know, like this big place where they would do all their graduations and all that kind of thing, because the horse barn and all of that isn't the same. It doesn't seem the same to me.
Understood. And I think those are all considerations that you as a board, with input from the community, need to determine as to whether or not we want to go forward. That's really the purpose for this hearing, is two pieces. Number one, do we even initiate this process? And that's what tonight's hearing is about. It's only initiating the process, only, in essence, putting forward advertisement for bids.
So does the initiation of the process also include this piece of paper that the former board signed that talks about we can't do this in the future? There can't be that expansion? I mean, that is a signed paper by former board members.
I don't.
I'm just asking the question. I don't know. I don't know legal stuff at all. That isn't my wheelhouse.
I don't understand what she's referring to.
When, back the last time, when the original property acquisition and redivision, subdivision by more right took place, the board did adopt a resolution that was shared with me today. Does that resolution adopted by a prior board completely bind the school board in terms of this particular issue? I would say, in all likelihood, no. School boards can change positions of their predecessor school boards, but certainly that's something for you to take into consideration.
Is it a legal document?
It is a resolution that was approved by the board.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's a great question. It is a resolution that's approved by this board, by the prior school board.
What's the rule?
But it can be amended.
But it can't be amended.
The resolution.
Thank you. You know, isn't it good, Nancy, that Dora sent this to you today? Here's what the resolution says. Whereas the Board of School Trustees is committed to providing a school environment to is conducive to learning, whereas the Board of School Trustees values input, and whereas the Board of School Trustees acknowledges and values the many contributions of local industry to the community, and recognizes the need for economic development, and recognizes the contribution of private property rights. And whereas the Board of School Trustees is committed to maintaining community schools that have both a physical and academic connection to community schools and the residential neighborhoods those schools serve, and whereas it is not conducive to school learning to have a property of any of its schools surrounded by manufacturing and industrial operations. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of School Trustees of Elkhart Community Schools that it is not in the best interest of children attending Elkhart Community Schools that adjacent public and private land where schools are located be zoned M1C. And that the superintendent is directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Elkhart County Plan Commission and the Elkhart County Board of County Commissioners. Signed 28th day of March 2013. By who? Jerry E. Starr, Doris N. Nielsen, Karen J. Carter, Susan C. Diver, Doug K. Weaver.
Ding, ding, ding.
I remember that.
You should.
Hey,
You should remember.
so, is there, and I'm sure you thought of this, but I just want to know, because I don't know. Is there any way to reconfigure how everything is set up now to utilize part of that land without swapping to improve parking or?
The southern lot?
So, what we already have, without swapping, is there any way to
Certainly you
reconfigure?
could put parking in the back there if you chose to. You could do pick up and drop off, whether that's the most appropriate traffic pattern. I don't think so, because you'd also have to put drives in to go all the way to the back of that area.
Are you talking parking for Warrite or
No,
parking for school?
for the school. I'm not saying just put the parking back there, just reconfigure.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of issues that we would have to take into consideration before we do that. I am not an architect. I know there's an architect sitting somewhere out there who might have asked some other questions, but I won't put him on the spot this afternoon, this evening.
I just wonder if.
No, that's a good question.
Does that resolution negate this process?
That resolution really only talks about what we believe, what that board at that point in time believed was in the best interest of the district as to a zoning issue.
Okay, so it doesn't.
It doesn't per se bind us in terms of considering this option here. But again, this is up to the board as to whether or not we even initiate the process.
How much does the school utilize that property?
You have a whole lot of people that are gonna,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a tremendous amount of people here that'll speak on that.
Yeah, there's people here that.
I mean, in the 18 years that I was there, you know, from our daughter starting until our last child leaving, that was used, I mean, they played sports on it, we've had bonfires, we've had community events, we've had, you know, trail rides, we've had butterfly births, we've had, you know, that's a de-escalation, it's a nature walk. I mean, it technically, I believe that if we really pushed it, we could press for that to be a nature preserve. I mean, it has been there. It was, you know, oh my gosh, your fourth grade year with Mr. Myers, I can't even tell you what he taught those children. And then that was carried on to many other, the art teachers have used it. It's,
Cross-country ski.
yeah, cross-country ski.
Is there anybody here from the school that?
Oh, yeah.
There are lots
Yeah, lots of them.
sure,
But I think,
I'd be happy to sit down so you can hear from
Okay.
Mr. Thorne,
Yes, sir.
I got a question. The lot 2 for Warrite right there,
Yeah.
is it zoned the same as where they got all those chassis parked right now?
No,
It is not.
it is not.
It is
So
zoned.
that was part of what happened, was that property, the Moorite minor subdivision has never been zoned M1. I think that is actually zoned presently residential.
So it's residential, okay,
It's
so,
presently residential.
What is Bennington zone?
Bennington, I'm gonna guess, going to the north there is M1C, but I really don't know.
That was Kim Price.
so basically, if they could get the zoning changed, they could put chassis there anyhow, if they could. I doubt they could.
Yeah, I don't think it's,
Okay.
Well, weirder things happen. Walking, you know, this today, this is an unusual piece of property that is around Eastwood, maybe one of the only elementary schools that we have something this, cool and beautiful in a true neighborhood still, where the neighborhood is trying to hang on to their little piece of heaven. And, the thing that bothers me the most, I think, is that, not hard about, you know, whether the city would do, that, as far as anybody I've spoken to, and I haven't spoken to very many, but the person that I spoke to very, of a long time today, walking that, said they have no, in fire trucks and more noise and more confusion in that particular little neck of the woods. So for me, you know, with that other resolution and just the encroachment of Bennington having, you know, like it's really messing up that border over there, to have something more come on a whole nother side. I mean, and I was lusting after the barn, believe me. I mean, I was like, please, can somebody deconstruct that and put it at my house?
Well, and Bennington was supposed to be there originally. That was Kim Price's event center.
Correct.
She sold it to Bennington, and we didn't have any say over that for that point, it was private, because this would have been brought up to not allowing Bennington to be there. And out of a good, fair, conversation, Tim was very adamant when they sold that to Bennington that there wouldn't be cigarettes, beer cans, et cetera, that trickled over. But that, could that be Bennington or, kids also in there? Possibly, but I mean, that was never intended to be Bennington. And so, because Eastwood didn't get the opportunity to advocate for themselves, and they advocated for something that they thought was going to be a healthy choice, to not give them the opportunity and get locked into two businesses that are now going to encroach on the school is unbearable.
Jim, I can almost, as an event planner, I can almost see, the other elementaries coming together. It's a beautiful space. I don't know. That's just me. I'm kind of emotional about land and space and elbow room.
So, have the people speak.
Sorry, I'll be quiet.
Yes, public hearing.
I'll sit down.
Who would like to address the board on this?
Hello, my name is Tammy Nielsen, and my address is 22533 Remington Court. And I'm here 8 years later, after Morbright did this in 2013. And I want to point out, could we put that map back up, please? Is that possible?
Oh, yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it, Susan.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. First of all, I'm going to say, I'm really concerned about that carve-out. My understanding is that was purchased from Morbright by a niche shop. And I think, I don't know, but I feel like that's something we need to find out, because I'm starting to feel like things are happening behind the scenes in a very dishonest way. And I'm wondering if this is now being held over our heads, like you should go ahead and do this swap, and maybe we won't sell the land to the city or the fire department. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but in this situation, that's where my brain is going. So we need to do some homework, because it's the original map, that carve-out was not part, that carve-out was part of that whole land, and now it's not. So why isn't it? Okay, so let me just say, I want to say very clearly, I agree with the resolution and what the board said in 2013. I recognize and acknowledge the value of the local industry in our community. Nobody here is disparaging what Morbright contributes to the community. I am questioning zoning in our county and around our schools. And that applies to every company. It just so happens it's Morbright on the table again. They bought that land from a couple who owned it, and it was zoned residential, or was it zoned agriculture? Residential, thank you. And they tried to swap 8 years ago. And we decided, after looking at all of the variables, that it wasn't going to be a viable option for the Eastwood community and the residential area. So I would say, what has changed now? Who initiated this? That's another question. Did the school initiate this, or did Morbright initiate it? Obviously, Morbright has something to gain here. And I'm sorry, but if they have something to gain, I hate to say it, I'm afraid we have something to lose. Okay, so needless to say, at the time when this all kind of went down, there was a group of residents, property owners, who were extremely concerned about the value of their property. Who wouldn't be? There was concern about noise pollution and sound, light pollution, and what kinds of chemicals were kept on the premises, and all of that stuff. But I just would say, please move slowly, with intention, do your homework, ask your questions, allow your gut to lead you through this. Something doesn't feel right to me. My oldest went through Eastwood. My youngest went through Eastwood up to first grade and then went over to Pinewood. I live in the area still. I was friends with many of the teachers at that school, and I'm glad to hear that there will be discussion with the Eastwood community. So perfect time. I'm against that.
Yes, ma'am?
Would you like the map up as well?
a parent of a student that goes to Eastwood.
And your address, please.
54152 Ash Road, in Osceola.
Thank you.
I'm also a teacher there. I'm also a former student. I was there when the Nature Center was built, when Mr. Myers, Mr. Hennaker, Mrs. Jorgensen, Mrs. Naden all contributed to building this cute little alcove of just nature there. And it continues to be updated with the Boy Scouts coming in, cleaning it up, and all sorts of things. So I really feel the same thing as Tansy, as something doesn't feel right in this situation. I was also around when we had the resolution or had the exchange or the more right situation come in. We know that there is industry, like it was mentioned, that it's loud, it's dirty on the north side, there's garbage that floats around to our property. The workers are taking breaks, they're taking cigarette breaks out there, we can smell it. The kindergartners are playing outside during that time usually. We have had increase in our traffic problems since they have moved in, and we're blessed that we have this wooded area to the west. It houses a natural learning center, and we use this area for science lessons and for butterfly releases, like we mentioned, hay rides and cross-country skiing. We have an outdoor classroom there, wooded trail. As you see the grassy square there, there's a trail that goes all on the outside where that tree line goes around. So in that whole big square there is a part of what we use as a classroom. A lot of people do go out and walk their dogs there. Obviously, we have a great soccer field that Lippert Components donated new goals for. Our community uses this for games, walks. Their families go and walk their dogs. It also serves as a sound barrier and as a visual buffer for blocking all the stuff that goes on the west side there. To our south, yes, we do have a parking lot. And we also, I know it's not shown, but to the left or to the west of the parking lot is actually a drainage area. It's unbuildable. If you go ahead with this exchange, we're afraid that we're going to be surrounded by parking lots and industry, and what will Eastwood gain out of this exchange? We heard that we might have a larger parking lot, and while that would be nice, it would only benefit the school for a half hour in the morning and an hour at the end of the day. And yes, it might help with the traffic flow issues, but most schools located on busy streets have the exact same traffic problems. And I'm afraid that with our school being surrounded by parking lots and asphalt, that we're not really trying to encourage the community to want to send their kids. Okay. Thank you. For your time.
Hi, I'm Peggy DeLange, and my address is 1535 Tremont Drive in Mishawaka. I do not have children in Elkhart Community Schools, however, I'm a teacher at Eastwood Elementary. This is my 4th year there. My 1st year as a 2nd grade teacher, 3rd year as a 3 years as a kindergarten teacher there. I use this space frequently with my students. Kindergartners, outside, in nature, is what it should be, right? So Richard Lowe wrote a book. It's called Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder. And in that he said, every child needs nature, not just the ones with parents who appreciate nature, not only those of a certain economic class or culture or set of abilities, every child. I shared an email last night, 2 nights ago, with Dr. Thalheimer and asked him to forward it to you. I'm going to hit the highlights of that email here publicly, in case you didn't have time to read it or to just give you some other things. So the 8 beautiful acres that were curated some time ago by the Eastwood community, and that was before my time in Eastwood. However, those folks curated this land, and they had dreams and they had hopes for that land. They had dreams and hopes that future generations would use that land to learn about nature, to be engaged in nature. And did you know that when students and children and people are in nature, their stress levels decrease, right? We are in the middle of a pandemic. Whether we want to believe it's over or not, it's not over. We're still in the middle of it, and we need this. We need this opportunity to be outside, take deep cleansing explore, connect, be inspired. Children, families, staff, students of Eastwood regularly use this land. As a dream it would be, and probably beyond those dreams, especially now that we are in a technology-driven area of our lives. We just believe that nature is of the utmost importance, and if we move forward with this walk, or even with considering this walk, I feel the message that the board is sending the public would be that nature education is not important to Elkhart Community Schools. I urge you to vote no on this proposal this evening.
Is there any other comment from the public?
Susan Wise, 22970 Basswood Court, Elkhart. Many of the things that I was going to say have been covered by other people. I did hope to be able to clarify a question that David had a little bit about the zoning and the parking of the chassis. 8 years ago, when the whole Moorite purchase of the whole set of property took place, that was it. The whole southern rectangle, including the chassis area, plus the yellow highlighted area, is everything that Moorite purchased. At the time, there was much, sorry, in old age, I'm losing my words, but basically a lot of people were against it. And to their credit, and I will say that I am not up here against Moorite in any way because I admire them as a company and they are a benefit to Elkhart. To try to appease those of us who were against their purchasing the area and having it rezoned to be manufacturing, they agreed that they would not use the first half of the property for any manufacturing. So if it is still zoned residential, that's why. So Moorite said, that's fine, we know you guys are upset, we'll keep that half natural. And so that's what they have done. However, at the time, the board thought it fit through the resolution that was read earlier to not do the exact swap that is being presented right now. At the time, Moorite also said, hey, you know what, instead of us taking the whole area, why don't you give us the back end of your property and we'll swap out the front end. It's pretty much essentially the same dynamics that are up on that map. And that is the resolution that the school board at the time decided, no, we don't want to do that. We want to keep that property for the benefit of Eastwood families, the neighborhoods, and Elkhart Community School. So right now, here we are again, 8 years later, and I understand Moorite wants the property because it will help them expand, and I don't blame them for trying. But it's up to us to say, 8 years ago we did think was right for the students, and it still isn't right. But that's a little bit of background though. There are a lot of other things we can cover. For the chassis, if they do just want to have that as parking for the chassis, that's essentially what is there now in the parts that they started using. The little part, you can see the chassis parts there. Mrs. Bowling, I think you can agree that there is still noise that comes from that area. I heard that when you were on your walk through the area, there was some loud clanging. So while that noise can't be heard in the school right now because it's far away, when Mrs. Bowling was walking in the last 2 school parcels today, they heard the noise there. So again, you bring the same type of chassis parking to Eastwood's backyard, that's going to be heard at recess, that's going to be heard during any outside class time, and chances are it's probably going to be heard in school because the people who live at the Bassett Hundred Frontier. Thank you.
Any other discussion from the public? Is there anybody online? No? Okay.
Am I allowed to say anything else, or was that?
No, you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
The question is, how does the board want to vote on this resolution?
There needs to be a motion and a second.
Motion and a second. The motion could be to approve the resolution. The motion could be to not approve the resolution. Either option is there for you.
I would like to make a motion to keep the other resolution intact, that this does not expand.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to deny this and keep the 2013 resolution intact. Is there any discussion from the board?
The resolution, as presented before the motion, is just a resolution to see if it's in the best interest after additional fact finding as to whether.
That's what the proposed resolution calls for, is really doesn't call for the investigation. But if the decision of the board is, let's not even move forward with the investigation, that's certainly in line with where we are.
Again, I don't know the history. I've only seen the maps. I'm not opposed to fact finding and getting additional. I think we possibly could land in the same position, but I'll defer on that one.
Proposed resolution, and there is a notice that would, presuming that this is passed, this is one of the newspaper, makes it very clear that the board does not have to accept these bids.
Correct.
Does do you know how this process got initiated the second time around?
You know, part of the process was initiated in discussion, as I understand it, and I was not involved in the early part of these discussions between the city of Elkhart, Moorite, and representatives.
The representatives of the city, Moorite, met with myself and Mr. Giganese to just propose the idea as the city was looking at that parcel and potentially doing something with the firehouse and just opening the conversation.
And I'm just gonna interject this, and this is not disrespectful to the city, the school, Moorite, or anybody. I lay disclaimer of no disrespect to anybody whatsoever. There was an opportunity for the fire department to purchase land. They lost out on that, and this was an opportunity for them to gain free land, but at the expense of Eastwood. So that's why I'm opposed to it, with respect to all people involved.
Of course, we can deny this, and the fire department can still build a fire department there. It does not require our approval for the fire department. That's why it is cut out of there.
Great, but that is a really, that's another fight.
I'm just saying.
And as we develop in the most amazing way in Elkhart, and we realize that our industry is moving to the north, and we have such a successful fire station at Oslo and Bristol, and then Little Oslo. To me, and I'm not a fire anything, but I would think, geez, I would really want my fire station to be north.
But as it,
when you run for mayor, you can do that.
I never want to.
as it sits now, though,
We do have the fire chief in the back, the city fire.
Just to clarify.
as it sits now, the city could put a fire station there.
As we sit right now, I'm not aware of anybody having purchased this property from Moorite, but I could be completely wrong about that.
And if we.
In my discussions with Moorite related to this, we've discussed the potential for them to convey all of that acreage to the south to Elkhart Community Schools as part of this process, and not convey any of that property to the city of Elkhart.
At which time we could control whether a fire station went in there or not.
But you would again be giving up the back property.
Correct.
Certainly you've heard people
Well,
in the community.
You could probably let the neighborhoods like that.
How do you know for sure they want to put a fire station?
I think that's why the fire chief is sitting back here, because the city has talked about that in the earlier meetings, with Parasol.
Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot, but,
I was endeavoring to be I apologize for,
Excuse my most dress, as I said, I'm not saying I'm speaking with anyone else endeavoring to be. Sean Edgerton, Fire Chief, Elkhart Fire. there are many moving parts that go along with this. As you said, the conversation was started between Morride, City of Elkhart, and also, excuse my voice, I'm sorry. Morride, City of Elkhart, and also the school system. There are things that I'm not at liberty to speak with you about at this time, but as I said, there are many moving parts, and there have been things that have brought up that are moving right now. I guess the best thing I can tell you is that the Elkhart Fire Department at this point in time is in the midst of an expansion, right? There are, with the excessive growth in the County Road 17 corridor, going north past County Road 6, there are things that are in motion right now that will necessitate the Elkhart Fire Department to be able to respond to those areas in an expeditious manner. And to change the way that we move throughout the city. In an effort to do those things, their expansion is needed. And to correct you, Ms. Muller.
Yes.
It wasn't that we had the opportunity to purchase property. That opportunity came and went before we
Quickly, before you had a chance to respond. Right.